Today, for the very first time, I swear, if you can believe it or not, I am going to hear the Beatles' Revolver. Hello everybody and welcome back to the second time we've attempted to film this video. Yes, we just recorded for 40 minutes and I realized that my microphone wasn't recording.
40 minutes, so we must have got halfway through the album, huh?
You would say that, but no. Luckily, we hadn't listened to anything yet. We just... Sorry, I got to take these off. They're really hilarious. Ha, look at my Beatles outfit. It's so funny. I got to take these off because they're just too dark. But anyway... We basically had just set up a lot of things, so I will go through and set everything up much quicker. And thankfully, I realized my track was not recording before we started listening to anything. So I have not heard anything yet on this album, and I have not actually yet looked at the track listing of this album.
Yes.
So,
in fact, this might result in a better video in the end.
Hopefully. So let's rewind to the back to the beginning, and I just want to start out saying, hello, everybody. Welcome to the video. If you are someone that is here because you watched our previous Beatles video for Sgt. Pepper's, thank you very much for watching that video. It's been doing really well. It was very surprising. We kind of did it on a whim, and I'm super happy with how that video turned out. Those of you who have watched that video, which if you haven't, by the way, it is here on the channel, and I will make a Beatles playlist because we plan to do more Beatles videos in the future. Obviously including this one, and including the one we've already done. So that will hopefully be a growing playlist we can do and add to here on the channel. But if you watched that video, you will know that I don't know anything about the Beatles at all. And I just want to take this opportunity to say that Cody is here not to necessarily be the specific 100% knows everything about the Beatles expert. Cody, you're just a guy, right?
Yeah, I'm a regular Beatles enjoyer.
Yeah. And so I just want to point that out. But we had a lot of really great comments on that video and a lot of kind of crappy comments as well, which we are very used to here on the channel. Yeah. But it was a very fun video to do, and I was caught off guard a lot by how much I really enjoyed listening to it. From both a sort of just enjoying the song standpoint, but even more so from a technical standpoint of being just shocked at how amazing everything sounded. And if you didn't watch that video and you're still here, not going back and watching that one, we listened to the Super Deluxe Edition, just the first disc basically. But we listened to the remixes, which I think were from 2017. But we listened to the remixes, and then we kind of compared them a little bit to some of the mono remasters that were also included on the Super Deluxe Edition of Sgt. Pepper's. And we just had a really fun time with that video. And so I'm hoping that this video is going to be just as good, if not better. We are not going to talk a ton about the Beatles up front here. Obviously, we already did that just for 40 minutes now. But we don't have to rehash everything we talked about last time. If this is your first video, just know that I grew up not really listening to... Once I started to discover music on my own, which would be sort of in a little bit before junior high and then junior high and high school, I was more focused on like metal and heavy music and things like that, which I got into through video game soundtracks and a lot of WWF, WCW theme songs and stuff like that at the time. So I was very influenced by those things. Before that, I grew up listening mostly in the car to the radio, and we listened to 99.9, which here was an oldies station, which meant... At the time, in the 90s, oldies were the 60s and the 70s and into the 50s as well. So I know a lot of the Beatles singles, and I think I know a lot of their earlier material. And I do know several songs from their more like these albums we're talking about here. When we did the Sgt. Pepper's video, I think I knew I was familiar with 4 songs, but I knew 3 of the songs well enough to like kind of be able to like sing them as we were listening them. But a majority of that album I did not know and I had never heard. And I haven't even looked at the track listing for Revolver yet, but I assume the same is going to be said for here. I do know from reading a little bit of the Wikipedia page that Elanor Rigby is on this album, and I really like that song. If you had asked me before we started this whole thing what Beatles song is my favorite Beatles song, I would have probably thought of Elanor Rigby maybe first. I don't know if I would have said it's my favorite, but I've always enjoyed that song because it's pretty dark, and I know the sort of heavier covers that some of the bands like Godhead did in the 90s and in the early 2000s of that song. So I'm familiar with that song almost more as a cover song than I am the original, though I have heard the original because I think there's strings in it, right? Because they do that dun 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 dun, which is really cool.
Yep.
But so let's see, what else did we talk about, Cody? I want to mention I want to get back on my soapbox, which I was on for quite a while, but I'll do it way shorter this time, I promise everybody. In the last video, Cody, because I didn't know very much about the Beatles, he was sort of telling me little things about them just as we were listening that kind of came up. Like he mentioned that the Beatles, were a band that stopped touring at a certain point, and that they had like a final concert that was like on the rooftop of the studio, and like these weird things that I just didn't know anything about. And I was so caught up at the time in that video that I wasn't able to focus on something that I've realized since then, doing the little bit of research into them that I have, that the Beatles to me are like the perfect representation of two things that I've been saying forever here on the channel. If you're familiar with any of the videos we've done here on the channel, I bring these two things up all the time. But one of those things being that the Beatles themselves, at the height of their popularity, decided that they did not want to perform live anymore. And there are a lot of reasons for that, and I was talking a while ago about this awesome book that I found that I have a series of that mentions some Beatles stuff. This is a Marshall Cavendish Illustrated History of Popular Music, and I have, I think, 10 volumes of it, and it talks about the Beatles in their respective years. And I was reading a big article in here before we started recording about sort of why the Beatles were breaking up and how they felt desensitized to the whole thing, and they felt burnt out from touring and their cycle of releasing an album, going on tour, recording another album, going on tour, releasing the album, going on tour, going to the studio, writing another album, releasing the album, and that cycle that just kept happening for several years in a row. And they decided not to tour anymore. And I have been saying for years that I am not a fan of live music. I think if you are a fan of live music, that's great, but I think what you're actually there for is the shared experience. You're there to, be close to a person that you admire musically, and you admire their songs, and just maybe even as a person. But if you really sat and thought about it, I really don't think anyone can argue that a live concert sounds as good or better at all than like a studio album. And so I've been saying that forever. Sorry, Cody, interrupt me whenever you want to say anything.
For bands that people really love, like the only time I really enjoy listening to live music, aside from going to a concert, which is a completely different thing,
right?
That's an experience. But if I'm gonna listen to I listen to a lot of live Devo bootlegs and official recordings, because I enjoy when you're so into a band that every little nuance with them, you enjoy hearing how they mix it up live.
Right.
And that's a separate thing too. Is not that I think that they would sound better, or that I even prefer that sound, but yeah, it's weird to me that if I go to listen to a song I've heard a million times, like some just classic rock, like Boston or something, and then I listen to a live version of it, it just sounds wrong to me, and I don't find it wrong in an interesting way. I'm just I just would rather listen to the original version of this.
Right. And I do, and again, I don't want to poo-poo on anybody loving live music. A vast majority of people love live music. I know I'm definitely in the minority with this, but I've always thought this. Even when I was in college and we had the day where we were mixing a band, I hid in the back and did not go up to the console and try to mix it. Live sound is very intimidating to me, and I don't like it for that reason, and also just logically and common sense wise, for me, it just doesn't sound as good as an album. 999% of the time when a person is hearing a band's music, they're listening to the album. And so the other thing that the Beatles did, which goes along with this, is since they stopped touring, they were able to put all of their effort into becoming a band that recorded albums in the studio. And I talk about that all the time here on the channel, that there's two different ways to approach recording an album. You can have the songs ready and you go into the studio, and the job of the studio and the people who work there is to capture your performance, capture the essence of what you're trying to portray with your music. The other way, and the way I vastly prefer, and all the bands that I like do this, you go into the studio and you craft each song, you craft the album in the studio. using the engineers and the people. And I also say this all understanding that the Beatles were so massive when they decided to make this decision, which in this video we're going to do Revolver. And so this was the album where they decided that they were going to craft the album in the studio. And from what I read, they didn't have the songs fully planned out before they went in. They had little rough ideas for things, and then they went into the studio and they used the engineers and the people they had there. They invented all this technology and all this, like, these advancements in audio engineering and things to obtain the sounds that they wanted to get. And the Beatles allowed themselves to go in the studio and say, hey, let's do this. How do we do this? How do we make this thing? And they had the benefit of all that popularity and that money and the backing and the great engineers that were there to help them to do all of those things. So I understand fully that not every band can do this. However, nowadays, I can make a whole song on my laptop with minimum amount of talent, trust me, and it can sound pretty good. And I can do all the things the Beatles were doing with one single plugin. You know, it's absolutely insane. So we're here to admit and admire the fact that they did all these cool things and had all these advancements. And we'll talk about that stuff as we listen to the music a little bit more, just based on what I and Cody read in the wiki page and different things like that. But I also want to say that, like, you know, some of the stuff isn't super impressive anymore because it's so easy. So I want to try to keep that in mind as we're going through and listening. Like, oh, they were working with tape. They weren't working digitally with plugins. Obviously, they were working with tape. And so I just wanted to point out those two things specifically here at the beginning of the video that I can't believe I didn't really notice when we were recording last time. And it was because I was just so caught up in the moment and so excited that I was liking what we were hearing. And I just, from now on, I will use the Beatles as, like, the greatest example of this, because no one can say, like, the Beatles are considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest band of all time. And a lot of people regard them extremely highly. And they, the greatest band of all time, decided that they wanted to craft their albums in the studio, and they didn't want to perform their songs live. They didn't want to be hindered on their album. They didn't want to limit themselves recording to only what they could perform live. They wanted to leave everything in the studio, which is what I talk about all the time here. And so I have no better example now. I can just say the Beatles. And if you don't like what the Beatles did, look at how popular they were. Look at their lasting legacy. Look at the fact that we're still talking about what they did 60 years later, right?
Now there is the big issue of the music industry is different, now, and a lot of artists have to do live shows to survive. Like, that is where they get their money, right?
If you want to be a band,
because they're getting pennies on the dollar,
yes,
for their digital album sales and whatever.
That's a great point.
I don't know how that was back then, but I would assume maybe, you know, the Beatles had their own label. They were the Beatles. They had the best deal, I'm sure. Surely they were getting a pretty sizable chunk of the album sales.
Well, from what I read, they were screwed over until this
Were they
album.
really? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that they had that guy Epstein or whatever who, like, was in control of their music, and he, like, totally screwed them over. But because they were so popular, the fact that they were getting, I read that when they released this album, they were actually getting 15 cents to the dollar.
Oh, interesting.
Which was extremely high. I just read a little paragraph about it in this book.
Well, like, what does an artist get now?
Nothing. I mean, it's insane. So we don't need to get too deep into it. People in the comments will let us know. And real quick, while you look that up, I just want to tell everybody, we really enjoyed doing the last video, and it was really nice seeing all the comments that people left that were nice, positive comments. Mm-hmm. Here on the channel, we joke all the time about mean comments. I get literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Every day I get comments that are saying this, you're so stupid, you should stop, all this stuff. So I'm fine with that. We're used to it. But I really enjoyed Sgt. Pepper's a lot. And I feel like some of the things that people were complaining about in the comments of that video were kind of silly and nitpicky. Obviously, we're not going to know everything. To me, the point of doing a reaction is I try to know as little as possible so I can give you my honest opinion. And I think we have a really special situation here with the fact that I am an adult person who understands a little bit about music and about the music industry a little bit, and it's about sound engineering and stuff like that. So, like, we have a neat opportunity here for someone who has a bit of knowledge And I'm not saying I'm wonderful or that I've ever worked on anything. We always get those comments too. People are like, I bet this guy hasn't done anything even close to as good as the Beatles. Of course I haven't recorded anything as good as the Beatles. You know, I live in my parents' basement. I'm a nobody, you know? So it's like, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, again, Siskel and Ebert never made a movie, but people really respected their opinion, you know? So I'm
Roger
a Siskel.
Ebert made a movie.
Well, whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Those are the other two guys, the thumbs up, thumb down guys then.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, but anyway, that's about the comments. Leave all the comments you want, whether they're mean, nasty, whatever. But I
please do correct us when we're wrong.
Yeah.
Just try to be polite about it, because
just
we
let
might
us
not know everything.
Yeah, we absolutely are not here to get everything right.
Yeah.
And like I said, to me, the point of doing a reaction video is not to just show you what you already know and tell you what you reinforce what you think. You know, I want to tell you all what I think. And again, I was so beamingly excited about Sgt. Pepper's, and I'm really excited to listen to Revolver as well. So I think we're going to have a fun time.
Yeah, we're here. You especially are here to learn about the Beatles, I think.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so the comments are part of that. And especially the people that show up to the live streams, because or the premieres.
Yeah.
Because we sat through, and that was useful to get like kind of corrections in real time from people. And it was great. Everyone was super positive, and show up to the next one if you want to.
Yes, and if that's something that you think sounds interesting, join us on our Discord, which we love. We're active on there all the time, and we have a really good community being built there. And after we posted the Beatles video and it got some good reactions, we got some people to join just because they enjoyed that. And so I think that, we have people on the Discord who were so excited that I posted that video because they were saying, hey, I came here because I loved your Metallica videos or your Depeche Mode videos or whatever. But Beatles are my favorite band, and it was really exciting to hear your thoughts about them, and the fact that you loved them was like even better. Because if you are here and you don't know the channel very much, a lot of the time we listen to stuff and I don't like it. And I'll sit here and tell you why I don't like it using facts, and people really don't like that.
Don't watch his Led Zeppelin 4 video.
It's awful. It's the worst album ever. It sounds so terrible. But anyway, we had so much fun with that. So yeah, check out the Discord if you want to sort of join our community here. Subscribe to the channel if you want to get our future Beatles videos, because we plan to record more. And even if nothing else, like the video, and then maybe next time we post a Beatles video, it'll be put in your recommended videos and get into the algorithm. But
do we want to do a weird Beatles stuff show and tell?
I do, but first, before we do that, at the beginning of the video, I just want to say, one of the main reasons we decided to do this video right now is because I wanted to film one more big video before I go into the hospital to have my bone marrow transplant. If you're not familiar with the channel, you're not part of the Discord, you're not hip to what's happening here, Kat. I was diagnosed with leukemia at the beginning of last year. I've been battling it all year. At the end of 2024, I found out that even though we'd done such a good job knocking the cancer down, it was coming back already. And so as of March 28th, 2025, I will have gone into the hospital. I think this video will probably come out before then. I'm going to try to get it out as soon as I can. But on March 28th, I'm going to be going into the hospital, and I will have to stay in the hospital for 30 days and then another 70 days or so in a hotel near the hospital, because I have to stay near the hospital. So it is my intention to bring my equipment with me and slowly do things and contribute to the channel in however I can. But it may be a while before we record another Beatles video, because I want to do these videos justice, and I don't know if I want to do this from the hospital or from a hotel room. We'll see. I don't know what the internet connection is going to be like for us to even do this, so we'll just have to see. But I wanted to shout that out and say, if that part of this whole channel, or if my story with cancer is interesting to you, I will be documenting a lot of it and trying to post updates on my YouTube channel. Do
more shorts?
I'm going to do a lot of shorts. Yes.
Okay.
And I want to make sure, if nothing else, I'm going to record and film things that I can make a pretty big video of after the fact.
Okay.
I want to take a picture of myself every day to see what happens. Yeah. Because I'm supposed to, from what they tell me, I'm supposed to lose all of my hair everywhere on my whole body, which is something that did not happen to me last year. I did have to shave my head, and I did have to shave my facial hair off because it was so patchy and terrible. But apparently I'm going to lose all hair everywhere. I'm going to lose a lot of weight, which is why they've been telling me it's okay that I put on like 40 pounds over the last couple of months since we stopped doing chemo. And so I want to do stuff. I want to document it somehow, and we'll see how bad I feel. I don't know how sick I'm going to get. I have a lot of radiation therapy that's going to be done to me at first, and that's supposed to make me sick. I'm going to be hooked up to things all the time. So I'm not sure what my freedom is exactly going to be. But if that is something that you're interested in, I do not do social media things. I have a Facebook page that's just a personal page, but I don't have Twitter or X or Instagram or any of that stuff. I do have a TikTok page, but I haven't been doing anything on there for a long time. I actually got rid of the TikTok app on my phone. Is TikTok still a thing?
They banned it and then they unbanned it.
Yeah, that same day or whatever, right?
It's back, yeah.
So anyway, I have a channel there that I posted stuff when I was in the hospital last time. Maybe I'll revive that. I don't know. But I just follow the YouTube channel if that's something you're interested in. I have a cancer playlist that I will put everything in there. So if you don't want to hear any of that stuff, that's fine. I understand. But I wanted to mention that at the beginning of the video here. Anyway, I don't remember what I was saying before I just started coughing and interrupted the whole thing. But with the last video, we were very privileged that we were able to upload it with the music in it. If we have to upload this video without the music in it, that will probably be the end of all of our Beatles videos.
Yeah,
but I'm expecting that since Sgt. Pepper's worked, Revolver will work as well. And then as we go forward, we'll be able to use the music, the Beatles music, in the video so you're able to hear exactly what we're hearing. What that means is that I get no ad revenue from any of this at all. It all goes to whoever owns the Beatles music copyrights. That's fine. That's not why we do this. If I was doing this just to make money, I'd do makeup tutorials. But I want to just mention that and say, check the description of the video for timestamps for everything that you need, links to our Discord, links to different things, links to listen to the album yourself, anything that would be relevant, a link to our Sgt. Pepper's video. So that if I have to upload the video without music, I'm so sorry. You can still hear us reacting to your favorite song, and you probably know these songs well enough that you could listen along without even hearing the music and know what we're talking about. But if that happens, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to mention that while we're still at the beginning part of this video.
Sure.
So, yes, Cody, feel free to show off any of the things that you have to show off.
Okay. So I wanted to grab more unusual stuff I had, I guess. Mm-hmm. This is the what is it called? The Beatles Reel Music, REEL.
Oh, interesting.
And it's all the songs from their movies.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So they had, they did a few movies. You probably know Hard Day's Night.
Well, can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
When you say the Beatles did movies,
oh yeah,
do you mean like Elvis was in movies, like just movies that were, or do you mean like there was a movie about the Beatles?
The only one I've seen is A Hard Day's Night.
Okay.
A Hard Day's Night is kind of they're the Beatles in it. I don't know if they play a fictionalized version of themselves. I don't actually remember. Mm-hmm. But their Beatlemania is running wild, and it's basically just them running all over London and evading the press, and it's just them having a grand old time.
Interesting.
It's kind of fun. Then they did Help, which I've never seen Help. I don't know if they're acting as... I don't know. Magical Mystery Tour is considered a movie on this. That was kind of a live concert.
Which
Yellow
I heard
Submarine.
Was really bad.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a notorious thing. Yellow Submarine is on here, and that is an animated movie that they kind of did a soundtrack for it and put out this movie. I've never seen that either, but it's kind of more of a psychedelic, and I think they do the voices for it.
Oh, no, I thought you told me last time, or someone told me, that they don't even do the voices of themselves in that movie.
Oh, it's possible.
I think, no, it was my friend Graham that told... I have to say this just as a fun thing. Like, after we recorded that last reaction, it went so well. I legitimately think that it's one of the best reactions we've ever put out on the channel here.
Yeah.
I called I messaged some of my friends I haven't talked to for a while who I know are huge Beatles fans, who maybe tried to get me into the Beatles years ago, and I just was like, no, the Beatles are overrated. You're terrible and you're stupid. Go listen to Taylor Swift, is what I said.
That's right.
And so I called some of them, and I talked to one of my friends who is a huge Beatles fan. And when we were hearing Sgt. Pepper's, one of the things I talked about the most was, wow, I know all this music that was so clearly influenced by this a lot. And this guy who I called Graham, his band sounds just like a lot of this stuff. And I've always enjoyed his music, but listening to that really shocked me. But I think he was the one that told me, yeah, in Yellow Submarine, I do not think the Beatles did. They hired voice actors to imitate the voices of the Beatles in that, as far as I understand.
That's funny.
So yeah.
Oh, sorry. Look at this. I haven't opened this, but we got the Beatles souvenir program.
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
I mean, this is an official release, but it's just a compilation they put out in the
Sure.
70s. That's like,
I'm sure
so
once
yeah,
they called it quit, every record store was like, "Oh no, please send us any compilations you have of Beatles material."
oh yeah. So here in Help, they're playing music while there's like a battle going on in front. I don't know.
Interesting.
So it seems interesting. Magical Mystery. So it goes over each of their movies.
Okay.
The last movie that's represented here is Let It Be, which is kind of, we've been talking a lot about the documentary.
Get Back.
Yeah, which the original film of that was Let It Be, which went unseen for years after that because they were so dissatisfied with it. But yeah, Get Back kind of brought that back. I've got another, this is just a greatest hits album,
Okay.
which kind of, I find stuff like this interesting because like this was, an official greatest hits album that is kind of, it's out of print now because they have the one album, which is all their number ones, which is like 23 tracks or something. But this has 20 songs. It says all 20 songs recorded reached the number one position on the pop singles chart. So this kind of was like the original version of that one album that they put out in, 82 on Capitol. And then I've got this one, which is the Beatles' love songs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's in like this faux leather thing. It's got
Wow.
kind of a cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So it's just a compilation of love songs. I mean, all their
It's a
so many of their
two-disc set,
songs
though,
are.
huh?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
That's cool.
and that's 77. They put that out, and then the last one I have of like post breakup albums. This is Hey Jude, and this is kind of considered like this is. They put this out after they broke up in America. They put this out, and this is all the singles that were never on albums.
Okay.
So this is it's kind of almost like a greatest hits, but like a lot of these songs are ones that people know.
Sure.
And I think this was a popular album, I think, and
Okay.
it's anyway. I don't have much to say about it, but that might be something where I don't know. We'll have to decide because there is a couple of. I was going to ask if we wanted to do they put out a single with this album, Paperback Writer,
Paperback Writer, yeah.
from the same session, and Rain, which are both great songs. You probably know Paperback Writer.
I think so.
I don't know. Do we just want to tack that on to this? Or do we want to do like some separate video of like all the singles?
I think it makes the most sense to tack it on when they were recorded.
I think so too.
So I would vote doing, which means we should have done Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields Forever with the last one, which
Yeah.
we missed that. But I'm sure
That's
we
okay.
have enough. If at some point we can do whatever, we can.
We'll figure how
that
to
out,
work
but-
those in.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I brought the Revolver album, so we can talk about like the track list, I guess.
Yep.
And one thing that is interesting is so I have the American version here. The American version is missing 3 tracks, and it doesn't have I'm Only Sleeping, which is a good one. It doesn't have And Your Bird Can Sing, which is maybe one of the best ones on here. And then it doesn't have Dr. Robert, which I barely know that song. There's a few songs on here that are just not, they don't even get played on like the Beatles channel on Sirius XM very often, which is weird because this album is considered, some people consider it better than Sgt. Pepper and like their masterpiece.
Yeah, I was going to say that's that's one of the things I was reading on their Wikipedia page. So I can't remember what we've said in this video anymore, or the first 40 minutes we talked about this, but both Cody and I did a little bit of research for this. However, as I have already said in this video, I know the point of us doing a bit of research on this was not for us to become the world's foremost experts on this album. So we did do a little bit of research though, and I kind of more focused on the sort of audio advances that they put forth for this album, and the stereo delay and things like that. Or not the stereo delay, the ADT. It was the automatic double tracking.
Yeah.
And then some of the other things that they did, they came up with the phrase flanging, even though it had already been a phrase, but the guy had never heard that before. So I learned a little bit about those things, and we can talk about that when we hear some interesting things in the recordings.
And I tried to focus on who sang every song accurately, so I don't get any hate.
Yeah, we got a lot of comments on the last video that were like, "Ooh, Ringo sings Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. How could you guys not know that? You're so pathetic. You're poser fans." Well, first of all, I'm not a fan, so I'm not a poser. I have specifically said that. And Cody was just there we did it as so whatever. But anyway, one of the things I do remember reading was that someone from the US or someone contacted them about giving them 3 singles from this album to use on a compilation or something that they ended up calling Yesterday and Today or something like that.
Okay, so that's where those 3 tracks went.
And that's why they took them off the US version of the album, because they were going to be using them somewhere else. But that was as they were recording the album. So they were not finished. They were not finished with the album yet. And so John Lennon just picked 3 songs that they had mostly finished, I believe. And people can correct us.
It's a short album, right?
It's only 10 songs without those 3. So
yeah, and it's 35 minutes with those 3. So that's like 20-some minute album. Huh. Yeah, the whole this is the last album where that happened. Everything after this, I think the US matches, and in fact, I think everything after this, like the stereo version, is also the standard. Which we haven't even gotten into that, but that's neither here nor there. But everything before then, like, it's so hard to say like what is their canon of albums, because if you were in the US, you got completely different albums,
right?
And you did get this album, but then you also got Yesterday and Today, which probably had the singles from this. It had those 3 tracks from this. Like, I don't know why they did that.
Yeah,
but I don't know if it was like they thought it would appeal to, or if it was just like we could put out more albums and make more money, I guess.
Honestly, you know what it reminds me of?
What?
It reminds me of the first 3 Harry Potter books, right?
Okay.
How they literally had to change some of the words from the British editions because they thought Americans were too stupid to realize that what a philosopher was. So in the United States, it's called Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Everywhere else in the damn world, it's called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. But they did that in the first 3. They literally changed words. Like famously, bogey is changed to booger. Have a wee is changed to have a pee. Things like that in the first 3 books. And then after that, because they got so popular, they were like, we are not. She was like, no, you're not changing my stuff. But anyway, that sounds like that. Like, these dumb Americans don't deserve the full album, so we'll give them part of it or something.
Early on in their career, they recorded German versions of their songs. The Beatles.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I would love to hear some of that.
Yeah, because they would tour in Germany, and they were pretty big in Germany, and yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. I love stuff like that.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to look at the actual album now for the first time. And this is when we discovered in the first video that I wasn't looking. So I'm going to bring up actual Spotify here so you guys can see what I'm looking at. So this is the Revolver Super Deluxe Edition. This has 63 songs and it's 2 hours and 30 minutes. Now I noticed it has 14 songs here on the first disc.
Yeah,
I thought there was 13, but maybe I was wrong.
There's 14 on this one.
Okay, so it must be 14, and the minus the 3 is what we got.
Yeah, it must be 11 in America.
Now, I also want to say the thing on their Wikipedia page, "Tomorrow Never Knows," is the song that they talked about the most by far.
Okay.
And so I want to listen to the first track of Take of Disc 2, where it's "Tomorrow Never Knows, Take 1."
Oh, okay.
Because apparently, and if you look, that song has 5 million plays.
Yeah.
Which is more than any song on the other version except Taxman, Elanor, Rigby, and Here, There, and Everywhere.
Weird, but that's because we're looking at the Super Deluxe and not just the single album release of this, which was also remastered. Like, there is just a 2022 remaster 14-track version on Spotify.
Well, right, but what I'm saying is there are more people listen to the original version than the final version, which got on. And when I say original version, Cody, one of the things I read that I thought was cool was "Tomorrow Never Knows" is the first track that they worked on in the studio, as far as I remember from reading.
Okay.
And when you listen to that, Take 1, it is vastly different sounding than the version that ended up on the album.
Interesting.
Like, completely different. And so so to me, the fact that the original Take 1 has 2 million more plays than the album version, that's really weird and cool. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to listen to that because I'm really curious about that, and we'll probably listen to that after we get done with the album. Mm-hmm. And then it looks like, yes, there is Rain.
If you go all the way on disc 5 is probably what we want to listen to on the singles, because they did.
I didn't know there was a disc 5. Okay, wow, they couldn't fit it all on 4 discs.
I think they just put that out separately because that's the single remastered in mono and stereo just separately.
Okay, so then yes, that will be what we listen to: Paperback, Writer, and Rain. Then,
yep.
And then we will. I do want to listen to Tomorrow. Tomorrow Never Knows. Take one.
Yeah. We'll do that right at the end.
We'll do that after we do the original version.
Sure.
Okay. In looking at the song lengths, I am disheartened beyond belief. However, as we discussed in Sgt. Pepper's with what Rick Beato had said, did you take an opportunity to look up who Rick Beato was?
No.
You should do that. A lot of people in the comments were like, yes, Rick Beato is right.
Oh, okay.
And you are awesome for enjoying Rick Beato, which I think he's just a popular enough person that everybody pretty much knows who he is, except for you, Cody, because you're lame.
Oh, I've seen him on YouTube. Yeah,
good. Perfect. I knew you probably would recognize him.
I recognize his face.
Like I said, he's probably interviewed Paul McCartney and
yeah.
Ringo maybe multiple times. He's that kind of he's that level, that standing, that big. But he talks a lot about he talked about how back when the Beatles were making music, they could fit what felt like a full song that you felt satisfied when it was done in 2.5 minutes. And nowadays songs are back down to that length of song, 2.5 minutes, but they do not feel satisfying to listen to. They only feel like they recorded half a song, which is something I complain about all the time. So I'm very curious to hear some of these songs. I mean, they have a song that's under 2 minutes long, which to me is not a song, that's an intro. So the fact that every one of these songs is under 3 minutes is, well, except for I'm Only Sleeping, which is 3 minutes, which doesn't count. But like, that's really a bummer.
This is a very narrow range. It ranges from 1 minute 59 to 3 minutes 00. And they all fit into that.
Yes.
That 1 minute window.
Yeah. And so okay, so maybe we won't get as much crazy variety as we had on Sgt. Pepper's, which we talked about the fact that Sgt. Pepper was inspired by the Pet Sounds. And I did read on that while they were recording this album, they took a break for a while recording. I think it was this. They took a break for a while to go do a round of stuff. And
it says they did a private listening party for the Pet Sounds album in mid-May.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which I think was when they were recording this. So that may have influenced a bit of this album, but I think you more feel that influence on Sgt. Pepper's.
What a time of change in rock and roll, 1966.
Yeah. And we did get a lot of comments on the previous video too that people were saying like, man, a lot of people commented that they were listening to it at the time, or that they grew up with their parents listening to it, and they were told and lived the experience of what it was like. And it's really hard in both ways. It's really hard for someone like us to imagine what it was like, but I also understand that it's really hard for someone that was there listening to me say that it's not that impressive, that I can put a delay on my own track right now like that, and it's not a big deal. I didn't have to do anything. So to me, my perspective is way different than your perspective is, having listened to this. So I understand it's very hard for both of us to relate to what the other person is saying and how we approach the way to talk about it.
You know what's funny is my dad would have been, he was born in 49, so you can work that out. He was a teenager when the Beatles started. He was in college when they ended. He was not listening to the Beatles.
Yeah.
So, there were people back then that were like, teeny bopper music. I'm going to go listen to my acoustic, country rock or whatever.
They were the Taylor Swift of their generation.
Yeah. And now he does recognize them as a huge band, but he was not, he will not sit there and tell you like, oh, you had to be there. It was amazing,
Yeah.
Like, he's very realistic about it, and you just got to realize it's, they were the biggest band in the world, but they were maybe not universally listened to by everybody.
Also, if I could get your dad on a video on the channel here, it would be like the greatest feat of all time. Your dad is the most opinionated person I've ever met in my entire life.
Yeah.
Even more so than my dad, which is pretty crazy. And guess what? They're brothers, folks.
Yeah. Man.
But no relation, me and Cody, no relation.
No.
But your dad is a really awesome person. Like, he's like one of my favorite people ever. You can't really be around him for too long, but in that time when he's just really great. And I've wanted to do a video with him and our dad's other brother, Larry. I've wanted to do videos with them so bad, but I just don't know what we would even try to do, but just to get them on there talking about music would be really fun. So anybody in the comments, let us know if you'd like us to try to bring on some of these old fogies like you people seem to be.
Right.
To talk about
to the point where
stuff.
the people that remember the Beatles are in their 70s and up.
Right. And
it's crazy. And
we
pretty
talked
soon
about that
the
last
Beatles
time.
will all be dead.
Yeah, we talked about that last time, that so far there's still a generation of people who grew up telling their kids that the Beatles were the best music band of all time. What is it going to be like when that generation
And we believe it, but are we going to tell our kids that?
Right. I
don't know.
I would say
I'm
Kaiser's
really
Orchestra
curious.
is the greatest band of all time, but I'm probably in the minority there.
I'm really curious what the Beatles' legacy will be 200 years from now.
Yes. Yeah.
And we'll never know.
Yeah, it really is. It really is so fun. And we talked about that a lot in the previous video, like the legacy of the Beatles. So go watch that if you want to hear us talk a little bit more about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, tell us your stories. If you were an old guy that was there at the time.
Yeah. Let us know what it was like.
Let us know what it was like.
And I don't have a lot of female viewers on the channel, but if you're a female viewer at the time, let us know what that was like too. Because I know, like,
did you faint?
Reading in that book about the Beatles and how they were getting burnt out on stuff, I think a lot of it had to do with just how popular they were. And when they did that Magic Mystery Bus tour thing, it was such a mess because the bus was hounded by people. Like, they couldn't drive through the streets.
Oh, I totally get why they hung it up.
Yeah. So, which is crazy. Because, again, last video, I found that out. I didn't even know that the Beatles, quit early. I didn't know that. Yeah. So that's my level of ignorance we're talking about here. So again, with that in mind, don't think that we should know everything, because I'm not going to know nothing.
So, and as a result, there are no great live recordings of the Beatles.
Which is so crazy.
There's the rooftop concert, and then there's the Hollywood Bowl, which they remastered using AI to take all this crowd noise out, but it's still not. The original is unlistenable.
Right.
But that was just, every one of their concerts was just women screaming constantly.
Which is,
and it's I can't imagine going to a concert and listening to that. It would be so obnoxious.
Do you think it was... I'm sure there are lots of documentaries we can watch about this.
Yeah.
But was it just the really uptight way everyone was raised, and then the 60s came around and the revolutions and everything, and hippie culture and everything, and they all of a sudden there was this, and I think at the beginning of their career, they were really considered a wholesome band, right?
Yeah. They weren't swinging their hips or nothing.
Right.
They were kind of spunky and in their interviews and stuff, and they were kind of sarcastic and hey girls, wink wink.
Yeah.
But that was it,
So they all these people were we can, and it just was this, they're looking for some way to kind of break out of the shell, as it were, and then this happens, and it was just this perfect storm.
Yeah, and
I'm sure
Elvis kind of did that, and
right? The Rolling Stones. I was reading about that.
Rock and roll was still fairly new, and rock and roll was changing a lot, and it was a time when young girls were getting into rock and roll pop stars,
right?
Whereas before then there wasn't a whole lot until the late 50s,
right? And it wasn't considered rude for a woman to listen to pop music or some ridiculous thing,
Yeah, something.
So it's but I was reading about that, and again, I can't. This book series is really good, and it doesn't talk about. It talks about the Beatles in the years that they were active in this series, because it goes from I think 1960 through 1970 something.
Okay.
But and maybe probably a lot before 1960 as well. But in here it was talking the paragraph specifically is in context of this, it's kind of hoity-toity written, but of course they're writing about the Beatles, and it's some music journalist, so of course they're all high and mighty about it. But they're of course in this context, it makes sense for us to compare the Beatles to Elvis and the Rolling Stones. They called it the Rolling Pelvis. Okay, but it was talking about how both of those bands did way more rock and roll things.
Yeah.
And that they were way more bombastic and stuff, but that the Beatles still were way more popular than them in their heyday, and outlasted them and all this stuff with their legacy and everything. Mm-hmm. Even though they were they changed so much over their career, but they still kept a lot of what that book talks about is how amazing it was and how they changed pop music forever. And that pop music was one thing, and then after the Beatles started to do their experimental stuff and everything, they were still popular, even though they had that 5-minute Middle Eastern sounding song on Sgt. Pepper's we heard, which when I listened back to it, I was like, oh man, this is so boring. But when we were listening to it in real time, I was like, wow, this sounds so good. I can't believe how good this sounds. And that's what we were focusing on.
It was kind of an interesting break from the album. Just wait till we do the White Album and you get to hear Revolution number 9.
Right, whatever that is. I think I know that one. Love Potion number 9. I know that.
Yeah,
one.
You got it.
Yeah. But it also in the book, it was talking about how they, at the time, bands did not put effort into making an album, and that the Beatles really created the trend of putting effort into making an entire album.
Well, so I think that was one of the reasons why they just didn't care what the American sequencing was different and tracks were missing and stuff. They didn't care up until about like this album, what the American versions were.
Right.
Because they were a singles band. You know?
And as a person that literally only cares about albums, like I couldn't give a crap about singles at all. Or a special song that was on a soundtrack or whatever. Like I like that stuff, I guess. But as a person that only listens to album, like I won't even look at an artist if they don't have a full album. I won't even click play. Not until they have an album. So like as a person that loves albums, thank you Beatles for making an album be the thing, the standard.
They transitioned to like the ultimate Patrick band.
They really are. It's so crazy. Again, I'm so glad that I'm discovering this and that we can do this on video. So all right, we managed to talk for 40 minutes again. So let's
be happy it wasn't an hour and a half.
Which it easily could have been.
Could have been.
Okay, so let's just start listening, and we'll talk about stuff in between. We're going to pause between every song if you're unfamiliar with how we do this. So interestingly enough, to point out again, the most played song on this album by far is the track 1. So I don't know if people just hit play and then stop after the first 2 songs or what, but
I think it's the super deluxe version. The people that are listening to this are listening to it maybe more of an academic sense, where you want to listen to the bonus tracks. Because if you're just going to look up one of these if you just look up Taxman, you're not going to get the one off this album on Spotify. You're going to get the one off the remaster shorter album.
I mean, does that have a lot more plays?
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, let's go look, you son of a gun. You're making
we didn't want to bring that one up because
there's only one other version of Revolver in their catalog. And it's the 1960, it just says 1966 album remastered. And the songs are listed as being remastered in 2009. And holy cow.
Yeah.
Elanor Rigby has 315 million plays.
It's interesting, though, that the 2022 remix hasn't supplanted it as like the default.
Oh, you mean the 2022 remaster version?
The remix that we're going to listen to.
Right.
Well, they're calling it a remix.
Yeah, but what do you mean supplant? What do you mean by that?
Well, if you just look up Revolver, you're going to get the 2009 version. That's what people are listening to.
Well, yeah.
They don't know. They just type in Revolver. Well, you would think that like Spotify would promote, or the Beatles would want to promote the newest album.
Oh, interesting. Okay. See, I just typed in Beatles and then went to albums and clicked see all. So that's how I found this. But I see what you mean. So there are 14 songs on this, and every song has well over 10 million plays. Even the songs with the least amount is 30 million or 23 million is Love to You.
Yeah.
But yeah, 315 million with Elanor Rigby. And then Here, There, and Everywhere and Yellow Submarine each have over 100 million plays. And those are the 3 big songs from this. Mm-hmm. And just looking at it, I will say, let's go through the track listing real quick. I'm just going to sit here on this one. So Taxman, never heard of it.
Okay.
Elanor Rigby, I know that song. I can sing the whole thing probably. I'm Only Sleeping, never heard of it. Love to You, never heard of it. Here, There, and Everywhere, I don't know that song. I know We All Live in the Yellow Submarine. Is that what Yellow Submarine is?
Yes.
The Yellow Submarine, the Yellow Submarine. Okay, so I know that, but I don't know if I've ever heard the full song.
Okay.
She Said, don't know. Good Day Sunshine, I don't think I know that one.
Okay.
And Your Bird Can Sing, don't know. For No One, don't know. Dr. Robert, don't know. I Want to Tell You, don't know. Got to Get You Into My Life. Offhand, I don't know that one, but that phrase in itself sounds familiar.
Yeah. They really belt it out in the song, so you might maybe you've heard it.
I mean, all their songs would be like, "Got to get you into my life,"
No, that's it.
Dr. Robert for no one.
No,
Angie Bird can sing.
Got to get you in your life.
Okay. So the way I did that was enough to tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I know that one.
Okay.
I do not know. I don't think Tomorrow Never Knows.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna get a vast majority of stuff on here.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and
now
there's stuff on here that I also rarely ever hear.
Okay, good.
Unless I listen to the whole album, because they just don't pop up on Beatles mixes and stuff. So.
And you have not heard the remix, right? Or maybe you did.
I have, because I have the album, so I listen to it on vinyl for whatever that's worth.
I listen to it on vinyl.
That's right.
Hold on, let me put my glasses on.
So not only have I heard the remix, I've heard the superior analog version.
Yes. Okay, so
that was a $15 Walmart record, by the way, when they had that sale,
which is awesome. But you do not have the super deluxe edition, though, right?
Nope, I don't. I wish I did.
Wouldn't it be cool to have all of these super deluxe editions?
I know. I've kept price watches out for them, but I've only got 2 of them, and it's just because they were like super discounted.
Cody, that reminds me. Mm-hmm. Do not let me end this call before I tell you something after we're done with this about vinyl records, okay?
Oh, okay. Right.
It's not anything anyone else would know, so want to care about. So I'm not teasing anybody. I want to tell Cody I found an album we both really like for really cheap on Amazon earlier today, and I want to let him know because we're both going to end up buying it, I think so.
Okay.
But anyway, okay, so we're going to listen to this, and then as we go through and listen, we will talk more about the stereo mix, this and that and everything, because I know, Cody, you said last time that this was the first album that was remixed.
Yes,
this is the earliest
album that was remixed.
And it's
actually one of the more recent remixes. But.
And 2022. And we talked a lot about during Sgt. Pepper's about how I was shocked that they recorded everything enough so that they recorded enough things so that it was balanced nicely in the stereo mix.
Yeah.
And that I liked the stereo mix on all those songs because it sounded so modern, because everything was placed where it should be according to modern standards, with the kick and snare in the middle, like the drums in the middle. The bass on the album was off to the right a little bit, which is kind of weird, but it was still enough in the middle that it sounded modern. The drums sounded fantastic. And then things were balanced on the sides, and vocals were in the middle and then also spread wide, and I was shocked. So this, I know, is the first album you said, I think, that was originally ever released in stereo of theirs, right?
I don't think that's true. But
maybe not.
I'm not sure. This is part of that transition where stereo was becoming more of a standard. But I think even on Sgt. Pepper's, a lot of people would say that mono is the way to listen to it, and so I think probably even more so on this one, people would say that.
But maybe I'm misremembering, but was Sgt. Pepper's the first band that they recorded it with the intention of eventually releasing it as a stereo mix? Was this album done that way too?
No, I think Sgt. Pepper's and this, I think the Beatles themselves considered the mono to be the one that they had their stamp of approval on, and they would say that's the way to listen to it.
Interesting. Okay.
Everything after Sgt. Pepper's White Album and forward, I think, is stereo only.
Okay.
So,
the reason I bring it up is because I am afraid if we listen to this, that this will be wonky placement of stuff in the stereo mix and not balanced, because they weren't at the time thinking of recording enough tracks to balance everything correctly.
If we listen to the original stereo mix, that probably would be the case.
Right. And so that's why I'm Yep. Awesome. We'll talk about that more as we go. Okay, yeah. Taxman, track 1 from the Beatles, Revolver, originally 1966. This is the 2022 mix. Hold on. I'm gonna hide Spotify.
Yeah.
Behind all this stuff.
Which we didn't even talk about. You hate the album cover. It's whatever.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I did. I hated the album cover. Well, maybe we can talk about that later. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay, Taxman in 3, 2, 1.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
Oh, do you get the little animated cover art on your Spotify?
It's not animated.
Oh, okay. It's on some right now. Anyway.
No, this is what I'm seeing.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Okay, so the bass is off to the left, and the drums are off to the left. It sucks. From that perspective.
Okay.
Sounds nice and dry, just like Sgt. Pepper's does.
So you haven't heard this?
No clue.
Okay. Cowbell.
Yep, and it's balancing out that shakery trash can sounding thing on the right. I cannot stand the drums not in the middle. Hopefully the whole album is not mixed like this. There was some weird stuff at the beginning of Sgt. Pepper's too, though.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wow.
It's a dirty guitar.
Yeah. But it's totally dry and right in the middle. Batman. Batman. Was the Batman theme song already around at this point?
That show was 66, so I don't know. Surely they didn't get inspired by that.
I think they got a lawsuit on their hands today.
That's right. Adam West better look out. I do love that guitar.
Yes.
Too bad it's gonna...
We're gonna get fade outs every song here is what I'm guessing. Which I thought Sgt. Pepper's did not fade out at all. Okay, I'm pausing it.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, let's go listen to the mono version of that right away. Just a part of it at least.
Which disc is that?
That's disc 4.
Okay.
Because here's what I suspect. The mono version will be better because there won't be anything pulling your ear to the left like it was there. Okay, so hold on. Is it the same length?
At 241?
No, the mono version is 241. The one we just listened to is 238.
Interesting.
What's in those 3 bonus seconds?
Maybe it doesn't fade out.
I've had that. I've gone through that before with Metallica. No, it still is going to fade out. Taxman, the mono version.
Okay.
From the Super Deluxe Edition 2022 in 3, 2, 1.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Let me tell you how it will be.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough for me to get what I wanted to know.
Okay. All right. Well,
I don't know how I felt about that because I did like how everything was sounding. Of course, everything was isolated really nicely, and it. Oh, I should have. One of the things I did want to pay attention to was that automatic double tracking stuff.
Oh, okay.
They said that the first song they tried it on was Tomorrow Never Knows. Tomorrow Never Knows is the first track that was recorded for the album. And I think while they were recording that song, they came up with that method of recording.
Oh, okay.
And so John Lennon, John Lennon, I believe, from what I read, sings the lyric, the vocals on Tomorrow Never Knows, and he actually did have to double that song. And it was doing that process that he was like, oh, it would be great if we could figure out a way to do this.
Yeah.
So I don't know. His voice sounded doubled there on Taxman. Paul's did. That was Paul, I'm sure.
No, I must correct you, sir. It was George Harrison.
Really? That just sounded like Paul to me. Okay. All right. Well,
I think it was written by George Harrison too. That's
one thing I'll get to know as we listen to this.
Yeah.
I'll get to obviously know them better and their voices and everything.
And I just have such a hard time with their voices are so like to some people it's so obvious, and to me, I just can't. I just don't get it, and it's not even just the Beatles. I just have a hard time figuring out who's singing on any song.
Sure.
But that's just me.
Okay, let's go into Elanor Rigby then.
Okay.
This is the one I definitely know the most for sure on this album. I don't even know any of the other ones other than Yellow Submarine. So
This is a great song.
yeah, yes. Is this regarded as one of their best songs?
Oh, overall, it's up there, I think.
Hey Google, what is the number one Beatles song?
So hard to say.
Hey Jude.
Is made up of 4 songs. I saw her standing there. Misery, Anna, Go to Him, and Chains.
I mean, if I look at their top songs,
Yeah, go ahead and do that.
Here Comes the Sun, Let It Be, Come Together, In My Life, and Blackbird, your favorite. Yeah, this isn't in the top 10.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
So
I was curious. I literally don't know anything about that stuff.
Yeah.
Hard Day. What was the first one you said? Hard Day's Night?
Yeah, that was on there, right? Here Comes the Sun.
Here Comes the Sun. Do 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 do.
Yep.
I do
that
know
has
that
a
one.
billion plays.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Elanor Rigby, the 2022 mix. In 3, 2, 1.
Look at all the lonely people.
Hopefully his vocals aren't spread like that the whole time.
Yeah.
Right now there's nothing in the middle.
Elanor Rigby.
There we
There you
go.
go.
The rice in the church where a wedding
So this is like When I'm 64,
was in a
right?
Like-
It's just there's no conventional instruments in this
wearing the face
Yeah.
that she keeps in a
Sure.
jar by
so
the
far.
door.
I don't think
It's
there's
like
anything
a
other
it's like a
than this.
depressing version of When I'm 64.
Well, okay, I'll explain what I meant then in a second.
Okay.
Okay, that is one track. You can tell that's one track with that delay effect on it. Yes.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah.
that is what we were hearing on the last album, and I didn't know what it was. I thought I knew what it was. Okay. So this is one track with him right here.
No one comes near. Look at him working.
God, it sounds so nice. It does.
Yeah.
And this is Paul.
Yeah. Yep. I was right on that one.
Okay, this is that stereo. This is that delay they were talking about. Oh, that violin or fiddle, as it were. I did read that this was an eight strings on this piece. Two string quartets or whatever played. An 8-person chamber orchestra or whatever they said.
Click on in the bottom of your Spotify. Click on the Now Playing button in the bottom right. Oh, see, you don't get the... I'm getting different animations for every song.
Oh, dang.
Cool.
I'm glad you reminded me of that, though, because I didn't want to have this up on... I don't want to have that. Whoops.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. All the lonely people.
Where do they all come from?
This is just one of those songs where it really reinforces that I like Paul's voice the most.
Yeah. And
I
look
think
at that,
he just
no
has the
fade
prettiest
out.
voice. Yeah. Even on a
Okay,
short song.
So do you know what I meant when I said this is like When
No.
I'm 64?
I guess not.
Okay. When I'm 64 does not have guitar, bass, or drum in it.
Yeah.
It's just orchestral instruments and Paul singing, and everything is totally dry. There's no reverb. It's not coming from a cavernous space. They're all just sitting there together in a quiet room, close mic'd, which that was a huge thing I read about on the wiki page, that the Beatles were one of the first bands to do close mic'd stuff. And
Okay.
and boy, does that explain all of my just shock and awe on Sgt. Pepper's, because
That's standard these days?
oh yes,
assume?
everything. Well, yes.
Unless you're doing it as a effect or whatever. Or you're
You
going for a
pretty much
specific sound.
close mic everything, and you can make it sound however far away you want in a mix
Sure.
using stuff. But
That makes sense.
not everything is close mic'd. But I mean, there's a difference between me standing back here singing and me going like this and talking, right?
Yeah.
The Beatles are recording everything like this, right? And close mic'd, that is close mic'd.
Yeah.
You know, this, and maybe maybe to someone this does sound better. You know, if I was talking on the radio, I would be talking this close, right? But I don't necessarily feel the need for that with our channel here. That's not what we're going for. You know,
Yeah, it's a little more conversational, open air.
right. And plus, we have good equipment. I know how to mix the stuff so that it sounds nice,
Yeah.
and hopefully, hopefully we don't have some technological problem here like we did for the first 40 minutes recording this. But you know what I mean though? Like it is not a band performing. That is just Paul McCartney singing with by today's standards, unconventional instrumentation.
Sure. Yeah.
And so to me, that is just like When I'm 64, which that song, when I was going back, editing the video, I think that was the closest when I almost was brought to tears listening to it. Like that song was the song that almost got me. I was like, I can't believe. And to me, I had the same feeling when I first saw Mad Max and they went in that sandstorm. I was like, I can't believe what I am seeing with Mad Max. And that was what it was like listening to When I'm 64, which I had heard before, you know, but paying attention to it and hearing this modern,
new mix and everything. Yeah.
Absolutely blown away. And that sounded fantastic. Now I do think that they had everything spread very wide there. So the stereo image was almost too wide for my taste there. It would have been nice to have more in the middle, but because there weren't very many tracks, just like with the track 1, you know, there was guitar, bass, and drums and vocals. And that was essentially the entire song. Then there was a cowbell on the far left and a shaker type thing on the right, or a Kabbalah or some sort of something like that on the far right. And so like, to balance those things, they had the guitar massive off to the right and then the bass and the drums off to the left a little bit. So I'm guessing in the original stereo version, that would be way more pronounced. And I thank goodness it wasn't that bad, but it was still enough to distract my ear. This, they had the vocals in the middle, which was where it should have been, and then they had some of the strings and some of the instrumentation to the left and some of the instrumentation to the right. And I thought it balanced itself very nice. But because everything was so dry, which I loved that it was pretty intensely wide, you know? So, but I will be very surprised if we hear a song that I like better than that one on the album in terms of from a songwriting perspective. And I'm going to try to focus more on the songwriting and stuff this time because people did get a little frustrated with me last time when we did Sgt. Pepper's because I was really just focusing on... I will say that too. This is another reason the Beatles should be my favorite band. Not one thing have I ever read online that's like, wow, the Beatles are the most insightful lyrics of all time. Like they're the greatest lyric writers of all time, you know?
Right.
No one says that. I read a whole giant, like 15-page Wikipedia article. There's not even a section about the lyrics. You know what I mean? Maybe when you click on each individual song there is. But for the album itself, not one point anywhere did it mention lyrical breakdown or anything like that, right? And I love that because I'm not a lyric person. You're not a lyric person either. No. And we are more here for the music and just the whole package in general. And so the fact that the Beatles aren't known for being super lyrical and that they're not super deep, although obviously like things like Imagine and stuff later on, which I know that's John Lennon, but I'm just saying like, you know, I think later on they probably cared a little bit more. There are
examples, sure. And then, you know, even in Sgt. Pepper, they kind of tried to have, it was almost a concept album with some relating lyrics, but no, I agree with that. They weren't exactly like, you know, out here protesting the war and all this stuff with their lyrics.
Or writing about like depression or which I mean, depression wasn't even a thing back in the 60s, but you know what I mean though? Like,
there are a lot, people will get mad at you for saying that. I think there are some songs where, you know, Paul would write about John's kid or their wives and stuff like that. And some of them are just silly love songs. But there are some, they had a lot of songs and I'm sure there's counterexamples to everything you would say.
The reason I brought that up was to say that I think the lyrics for Elanor Rigby are pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
I like that. You know, and I like the imagery that it invokes, right? Father Mackenzie picks up the rice in the church where the wedding has been or whatever. Like, that's awesome. It's really cool. It tells you a story. You can picture so vividly in your head what's happening. And it's a dark song. It's not a happy song. And so
so try to focus, I guess, you know, on these songs which you haven't heard. Try to focus on more of the songwriting, I guess.
I'm going to try. That's what I tried.
Because maybe there will be more of those stuff that you like.
I want to try to do that and not just be distracted. However, it's tough with a song that's only 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, if these songs were 4 minutes, I could spend the first half of it, if the intro was longer than one bar, I could spend the first big, like, generally when we do reactions, the way I listen to something generally is like, what do the drums sound like first? Then what else is happening? Then the vocals I get to last. But when you have such a short dang song, you can only focus on certain things at certain times. So, okay. So now we are again into uncharted territory, basically from here on. And I'm expecting that possibly there will be some songs that I do know and I just don't know that I know. Probably. But as far as I know, from here on out, Yellow Submarine is the only song I've heard part of. Other than that, whatever one I said, got to get you into my life, or whatever it is. Okay, so I'm Only Sleeping. Oh, hold on. One other thing I have to mention, because this song was referenced in it. They and I'm not a fan of this at all, and we don't condone this ever, but it happened at the time, and so we have to bring it up. The Beatles' use of drugs. And the fact that they were this was their first album, I think that they allowed that to influence them on some of this stuff. And I think that from what I read, I'm Only Sleeping is a song that has like some weird psychedelic-y moments to it. Yeah. And that was inspired by their obsession with LSD. And it specifically said something about a different drug or something that something. So okay. Sorry, my uninformed personage doesn't know all of this, but I wanted to bring that up and just say, hey, we understand that. I read a little bit about that too.
That's why this is considered their first foray into psychedelic stuff.
Right.
And
music.
This is one of those songs.
So. Right. Okay, I'm Only Sleeping in 3, 2, 1. See, now here the drums are not close mic'd. They're far away.
I can tell, yeah. Now that
and that's kind of cool. It brings a different sound to it. In fact, it doesn't even sound like there's a kick drum mic. The vocal on the right has that delayed effect on it.
Yeah.
Where it's just one track, but it sounds like it's doubled. See, to me, that doesn't sound like a double. It sounds like a delayed stereo effect.
Yeah, just an effect. Backwards guitar. There's a little of that Indian George Harrison influence.
Okay.
But yeah, this is the first album they did any sort of backwards tracking, I believe.
Okay.
With instruments or vocals.
I liked...
Ooh, I like that bass.
This is different right away. Just the fact that the song stopped for a second.
It's like a different song now, yeah.
I like the strummy craziness of that guitar on the left.
Yeah.
That's also not close mic'd.
Yeah.
And I like that the bass also feels kind of washy.
It's not my favorite thing to hear, but I get there.
I did read that on one of the songs, Harrison or Lennon wrote a guitar part backwards intentionally.
That was probably this.
It probably was.
Unless it was Rain. Rain has some backwards stuff too.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Is that an upright bass? It sounded almost like an upright bass. I don't think it was though. Wow. You hear their breath there?
Yeah.
That's so nice.
And I do like John's voice in this song too.
Is this Paul McCartney singing?
This is John Lennon.
Okay, wow.
You can tell it's that more nasally voice.
Yeah, yeah. That is not a fade out. I wouldn't count that as a fade out.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
That backwards guitar, it's almost like sitar-ish.
Well, and when it first came in, I thought something was wrong, because he must have done a little downbeat thing Like it didn't sound right at first. And then I was like, what is that? And then I realized what was going on. And then it does kind of stick out like a sore thumb.
But it kind
However,
of fits with the theme of the song. You know, it's a little dreamlike,
Yeah.
a little, yeah.
yeah, like, see, it's so interesting because today, I don't know when this started exactly, but now with music, if something is dreamlike, it's very drenched in reverb.
Yeah,
Like it's saturated with every effect you can put on it. And that is what today we perceive as being very dreamy. And so it's interesting to think that back in the day, something that was reversed would have been considered dreamy. Or the way they were interpreting it, you know.
I think the idea is that like this is not
It's not natural.
sound you've heard before.
Yeah, it's not natural. Right.
Nobody's ever reversed guitar before.
Right.
Maybe
right.
someone technically did, but nobody's ever heard it. You know?
Right.
And so I think that's kind of what they were going for there.
Yeah, like for me personally, I think I would have enjoyed that a lot more if it had a lot more effects on it.
Yeah.
You know, and I like we said kind of with Sgt. Pepper's, like to me the dryness of everything is the thing that's shocking the most to me, and it was the thing that shocked me the most with Sgt. Pepper's. And now that I kind of know what they were going for at the time, they were not trying to make things very reverb heavy. You know, they weren't trying to make it sound far away. They were literally trying to make it sound like it was mic'd close.
Yeah.
And like in that song, the guitar was the only thing that was close mic'd that I could tell, and the vocals, of course. But the drum, we specifically pointed out right away, that sounded like one microphone in a room far away from the drums.
Yeah,
and it sounded
and
like there was just a snare drum and maybe a kick drum every now and then in there. But there was no cymbals or anything like that at all.
Jangly guitar
And the
on
jangly
left.
guitar. But and see, that is so something people would do today. Like just such a thing that someone would do nowadays to try to make something sound older, you know? And so again, very cool. Very cool. I did not hear a single word in that song. I'm so sorry. Like I tried, but I just was like, man. And then that guitar started and I was like, what? So
I have a hard
guess-
time understanding that song, except for the "I'm only sleeping" part. But
Oh,
I
sure.
don't know if the understanding the message of that song is really what that one's about. I think it's more of a vibe.
Yeah, and especially if it's supposed to be, yes, exactly, more of
Yeah.
a vibe type thing, for sure. Okay, let's go to Love to You.
Love You Too.
Oh, sorry, Love You Too.
T.O.
Wait, is this Love You Do?
Nope, that's
You
Love
know.
Me Do.
Love Me Do. Okay, so this is Love You Too and Love Me
Love
Do.
You Too.
Okay. All right, well, let's see what they've got in store for us here. Love You Too in 3, 2, 1.
That's right. Can you tell who wrote this song?
George Harrison. I'm starting to learn.
I wish I could get behind his India-inspired stuff. It's hard. I enjoy it as a break in the albums.
See, and I've always felt that way too. I do not like Middle Eastern sounding music
Yeah.
very much. But I am
Yeah.
excited for the new Bloodywood album that's coming out next week, baby. 1 week from yesterday. Cody's going to hear Bloodywood for the first time in our next series of What is Metal videos.
Oh boy.
Each day just goes so fast.
So is this George Harrison singing?
Yes.
This could be any one of the guys.
I
Come
know
on,
George
that's so
Harrison has
silly.
the most he's like the average of all three Beatles as far as his vocals go.
Okay, so this is doubled then.
Yeah.
That was doubled his vocals.
Like actually doubled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell. It's different takes.
A lifetime is so short. A new one can't be bought. But what you
The first song he did with this kind of India style stuff is Norwegian Wood on the last album.
Yeah.
And that's Audrey's favorite Beatles song.
Really?
It's actually more of it's a better mixing of sitar or like I don't even know what instruments are in
Is it
I guess, but-
incorporating the elements of that into more of a rock?
but
typical rock
it's
thing?
more of a real traditional Beatles song.
Okay.
And then this stuff is a little more experimental. But
Well, and the funny thing about it is it's not experimental if you live in that part of the world.
Oh, sure,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? So,
Yeah.
so it's like he was just taking an influence from something
It's-
very foreign.
The impact of the Beatles' trip to India cannot be overstated.
Interesting.
Like, there is so much has been written about their trip to India and everything that happened there and how they were different when they came back.
Interesting. Is that where John met Yoko Ono?
No, I don't know where he met Yoko.
No, I know. I was reading in that book
But,
about how people regard her as the one that broke the Beatles up and stuff, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I think I knew part of that, and I know a lot of people don't like Yoko Ono.
Sure.
And I've seen that clip of them Beatles performing with some famous musician online, and Yoko is just like keeps
Oh, yeah.
bogarting them, and he like turns her mic off or something, or
That's a hilarious
something.
video. I forget who they're with, but
yeah, some famous
great.
like Merle Haggard or some very
Yeah.
famous like well-known. And actually, maybe it wasn't even the Beatles. Maybe it was just John Lennon and Yoko Ono at that time. Yeah, this is a fake
Right,
out.
I think it was. Yeah. I don't have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, sorry, me either. Like I said in the last video, that reminded me of playing. It reminds me of playing
Oh, that was so funny when you edited in that footage of
Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed.
Yep,
That was
yep.
great.
It reminds me of that, and it also reminds me, and again, this is our stupid American brains. Like I said, it reminds me of playing Assassin's Creed Origins as well, which is the game set in Egypt. Which maybe Egyptian music is totally different than that, but
I'm
in
sure.
the United States, it's all kind of the
It's
same thing,
all-
which is not good. I understand that, but at least we're here immersing ourselves in British culture too. So. Yeah, that's just not my favorite stuff that they do. So I'm, you know, no, I was going to ask you because you mentioned last time that George Harrison released like a triple album or something after this.
Yeah,
and-
and it's been a while since I've listened to that, but I want to say no. We got more into more rock and roll style stuff.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, is it all this? Because that would be tough to listen
right.
to.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I'm sure there's some on there that are like that, but
Yeah, and you said the third disc is like a jam session type thing.
it's more of a jam, but I don't think it's like sitar jam.
It's like guitar, bass, drums.
I
vocals
believe
type
so,
thing.
yeah.
Guitar, bass, drums. Okay.
Yeah.
I would be interested in hearing some of the Beatles solo work eventually.
Yeah,
If we
you know,
got to that
that's,
point.
That's one of the directions we could go once
Yeah,
we
if we got
finish
to that
these.
point.
Yeah.
All right, I say we keep going.
Yep.
Excuse me. All right, this is Here, There, and Everywhere, which I think was one I heard mentioned a couple times on that, or maybe not. I don't know. All right, Here, There, and Everywhere. I don't know nothing about it. In 3, 2, 1.
Lead a better life. I need my love to be here.
Okay, that's 2 tracks of Paul. I think that's Paul.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Lord. Drums and bass in the middle. Those oohs are great.
Yeah. I wonder if they're going for more of a throwback sound on this one. With those
That's an
oohs
interesting
and-
thought.
It's hard to imagine that now because it's all old music to us. but-
Right.
Running my hands through her hair.
Such a pretty voice.
Both of
Yes.
us thinking how good
Very calming.
Yeah.
someone is
That guitar,
feeling, but she does.
they're doing some funky stuff on the guitar there.
I want her everywhere.
Which is cool.
And if she's beside me, I know I need never care. But to love her is to need her everywhere.
Wow, those guitars needed to be tuned. Wow.
Love is to share.
It does. It sounds so close mic'd. Like even to an extreme. Like maybe too much. Like maybe pull away from the microphone a little bit. However, it does sound great. I mean, I don't want to imply that it doesn't sound good. And it's mixed really well.
I know I need never care. But to love her is to need her everywhere.
Still
Apparently,
two
Beach
tracks of
Boys,
Paul.
Beach Boys, God Only Knows was a influence on this song.
I could totally see that.
Yeah.
Well, was it you that said this earlier that the beach, or maybe I? Well, let's wait till it's done.
Yeah.
Hoping I'm always there.
I did like that song.
Yeah.
I did. I did
good.
like that song. I definitely liked it more than the one before that, and I think I liked it more than I'm only sleeping as well. And because it was mixed nice, I think I liked it better than Taxman as well. Though I like Taxman as a song better. Taxman was basically a Blur song.
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
I mean, they have like they have a song called like Postman, and they have a song called. They have a bunch of songs like that. So it's like, no, I was gonna say with that one. One thing I do want to say is like that was obviously 2 tracks of vocals. Like they were doubled there. However, if you look in the notes, it may say that it wasn't doubled or that they still use that effect on this song. Because if you think about it, Cody, once they figured out that technique, right? And I did read that they used it on other instrumentation and stuff everywhere across the album then, and then moving on in their career. I'm assuming as technology and they could use more tracks, they did it maybe a little less, but they use that same effect everywhere. And we heard it on Sgt. Pepper's. I just didn't really know what they were doing or how they were achieving that effect. But now that I know it was a big deal that they're automatic double tracking thing, he could double track himself, and then they do that effect on it and pan them both sideways, and now all of a sudden it sounds like massive Paul McCartney, wall of Paul McCartney, right?
Yeah, sure.
And that song did feel like it could have had that effect on his vocal tracks. And then because when you're doing that, however much you add of that second part is how effective it's going to be, right?
Right, yeah.
Because I could record a take of something here, and then you do that effect and bring it on the left, put it on the left, and then lower the volume a little bit so that it's still there. And then if I did do a double and you just reverse that effect, you don't reverse it, but you do the reverse of that, where you take the lead part of it, the main track, and you put it to the left a little, like they did with this, and then you do that effect on it and you just bring it down a little bit and everything suddenly sounds very thick. That's essentially cross-pan delay, which is something I was talking to you about when we did that raunchy video a little bit. One of the raunchy videos, I was talking about cross-pan delay, and it's a mastering technique. And they're essentially could be doing the same thing here on this with any instrument or anything, and just basically taking a little bit of what's on the right and putting it in the left, but not making it a feature so that it feels like this a little bit instead of equal. It feels like this. Yeah. But then what you do is you put something else up here, and then you put its reflection down over here, and then you move it down. So then you have this balanced by this. I don't know if I can't see my hands if they're all on screen.
No, yeah, you're good.
You have this balanced by this, and it all works together into the giant.
That makes sense.
The stereo spectrum, stuff like that nowadays is you don't even really think about stuff like that because it's so obvious and easy, and it's not something everybody does because you don't want to start cluttering things up. But I feel like songs nowadays have more layers to it than this. Like that was very simple, that arrangement.
Oh yeah.
And obviously there's simple arrangements done now. There's acoustic guitar and singing just like there always is through music. But interesting. Yeah. I like that song. I love the oohs and the ahs.
Yeah.
I like that kind of stuff.
Very pretty.
It does feel throwback,
Yeah.
Which for us, throwback means something way different than it did for them.
Right, but it was almost like a doo-woppy sound.
Right, like the Temptations or something.
Yeah.
Which would have been, the Temptations were obviously still a band. Now Temptations went way into the 80s.
Yeah, sure.
And I love their 70s music a lot. That's people coming out, people coming in. Why? Because of the color of the skin. Run, run, run. But you can't roll. Like, vote for me. I'm actually thinking of the Sister Act version of that song. But
the Beatles were heavily influenced by American music of the 50s.
Okay, cool.
For sure.
They've
cited a lot of different artists, a lot of black artists from the 50s and early 60s.
Oh, sure. So like the Platters, the Drifters, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Which that's the stuff I know. I know a lot of that stuff because that's the era that I, grew up listening to a little bit of, Sam Cooke and all that stuff.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. All right, let's go on to Yellow Submarine. I don't know.
Right.
I'm really curious about this one now. So,
you know it.
Well, but what I think it is doesn't sound like what we've been hearing so far. So, all right, Yellow Submarine in 3, 2, 1.
In the town where I was
was Ringo, by the way.
Okay, interesting.
Which Ringo kind of gets one song on every album.
Okay.
As far as I know. To sing.
And
not to
was
write.
this a single? The drums are way to the left, which pisses me off.
I'm not sure.
Ringo
Maybe
didn't want to distract his vocals from his
That's
instrument.
Right. You got Ringo on the left and the right.
You couldn't get sound probably out from under the waves at the time. You know?
Yeah.
Man, that drums over there really pissed me off.
Maybe this is better in mono.
I think so. No, it wouldn't be. The vocals are so wide and awesome. Ooh, here's the sound effects.
Yeah. It's a real happening submarine.
Ooh. Hey, there's Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Brass Band.
Yeah, it really does sound like. Kids love this song, by the way.
Who does?
Kids love this
Oh,
song.
kids? Well, it should. It's a little kid
My
song.
nephews love this song.
Your quality of your camera, for some reason, dipped really low.
Yeah.
That never happens to you.
Kick in. Maybe it's your connection.
Maybe.
Don't worry
No,
about it.
I know. I just don't want it to be that way.
As we live a life of ease, every one of us has all we need.
Everyone else. All we need.
And see a green
Who is that doing that part?
yellow submarine.
I don't know.
Because I could see that being someone other than one of the four
John,
Beatles.
maybe? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, here's the. Now you can hear them all in the room together doing the game vocal part.
It's a very happy, fun song. If you
See, when
ignore
I
the
think of
drum
submarines,
roll.
I think of death, right? The only purpose for a submarine is to go sink ships.
Right, yeah.
And people die in submarines all the time. They get sucked
You
out of
think
the
of, like, Das
portholes.
Boot.
It's absolutely terrifying and terrible.
Yeah.
But in the 60s, a submarine was
funny.
probably,
You get a fade out.
still thought of as like a novelty thing from the war, Which, I mean, submarines had been around
Sure.
for a long
Or
time.
like a
of
submarine
course.
sandwich.
A submarine.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how the Yellow Submarine movie, and then there was a Yellow Submarine album that went along with that, and when this became a single, or I mean, I assume it was on this album first, and then it got some sort of popularity, but it's kind of a weird one on this album. And I would like to see the movie sometime because it seems like it'd be fun. I think it's just kind of a trippy animation.
Sure. Yeah.
Silly
I don't
movie.
think I'd have any desire to see it at all. But see, that's what I picture in my head is like the cover of that album. And I think I've seen it, like a bit of the animation with like rotating flowers and stuff. And I think I've seen that.
Sure, yeah. It was, definitely. Even the animation on Spotify was that.
Oh, interesting.
cartoon
Yeah, I
submarine
didn't see that.
Spinning around and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know why you don't get that, but it is kind of weird to think that that song was on this album first.
I have to say, I don't know what's happening with Cody's video track, and his audio is screwed up too now. So, well, it's just that
do I
it
sound
sounds
bad
like
too?
really low, like it's trying to like match up with what you're doing. Okay, let's move
You
on,
can still hear me.
and we are on She Said, She Said.
Oh.
Right, Cody?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh
She
my
said,
gosh,
she
you were
said.
so delayed. That's all right. We'll make it work. It's going to be fine, everybody.
Is it that bad? All right,
It's
all
going to
right.
be fine. No, it's not that bad.
Yep.
All right. She said, in 3, 2, 1. Wow, listen to that snare drum.
She said, I know what it's like to be dead. I know what it is to be sad. And she's making me feel like I've never been born. I said,
Wow, what was that? It was like a like a recorder or something in there.
It make me feel that I'm mad.
Yeah.
And you're making me feel like I've never been born. She said you don't understand what I said.
So who's singing this one? Okay.
John.
Everything was right. Everything was right. I said, even though you know what you know, I know that I'm ready to leave. 'Cause you
What the heck was that?
make me feel like I've never been born.
Yeah, it sounded like a glitch.
Yeah.
She said you don't understand what I said.
This is awesome. This sounds like something off of Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah.
So who... Okay.
Everything was right.
Organ in the background. That must have been what I heard earlier.
Everything was right. I said
That guitar on the right is very intense.
what you know. I know that
Yeah.
I'm ready to leave. 'Cause you're making me feel like I've never been born.
One of the few Beatles tracks that does not feature Paul McCartney in any capacity.
Interesting.
It's like to be blind.
Because he walked out of the recording.
Really? Huh. A very annoying bad fade out. That was terrible. Okay, so I can already tell that the massive 5 to 10 second delay between us is going to cause issues here, but it's okay. Well, like I said, we'll make
I'll try
it work.
not to talk over it. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. It's just I wish we could respond a little bit quicker to each other during the song while it's playing, Yeah, it's fine. It's
Okay.
Hopefully the internet will fix itself.
Yep.
I told Cody I think we were off. We weren't recording at the time, but we had a big power outage here last night, and there was a bad storm, and we had lost power for I think total around 10 hours. It was about 4 hours in the afternoon / evening, and then for a majority of the night we actually didn't have power either. So I don't know if what they did with that or what they're maybe trying to still do is affecting our internet, because I very rarely have internet issues here. And I went and restarted my router, and but that's all right. Hopefully the video ends up being okay. So yeah, that song was interesting. There was some stuff way in the background that was hard to hear almost with the organ and stuff. I felt like it was very the guitar on the right was very almost attacking and too much, I felt. Did you get that feeling as well, or?
Yeah, there was at the start there was a for the first 30 seconds there was a really high pitch. It was like you had tinnitus or something.
Yeah.
Going on there.
I noticed,
and I don't know. I didn't know if you even heard that. If maybe you couldn't hear those frequencies or something.
Yeah, I
but,
noticed that there was some stuff like that throughout.
There's a lot of background stuff there.
Yeah, I think there was also the snare drum was very different sounding. It sounded like they had something sitting on the snares or something. It was very hollow sounding, but they didn't turn the snares off. You could still hear the snares on the snare drum. And I actually liked the way the drums sounded a lot on that one. I thought that was pretty cool. Paul's voice to me sounded doubled the entire, or not Paul. John's voice the entire time sounded doubled the entire time. So, interesting. Not my favorite one, but also
that
not
was
terrible.
the end of side one.
Ah, interesting. Okay, interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. I almost wish that, like we talked last time, that there should be a sort of a slower song at the end of each side,
Yeah.
God, it's 8-second delay, Cody. It's terrible. I hate this. I
know. I'll try to do more letting you talk in a block and then maybe throw it to me or something.
Yeah, I'll try to do that, but I don't know. Okay, all right, let's go on. We're halfway through, actually, only. Good Lord. Okay, Good Day, Sunshine. This sounds like a pretty happy song to me, so...
I bet Paul wrote it.
Yeah, probably. You're probably right. Okay, only 2 minutes and 9 seconds long. This is a pretty short one, but not as short as the next two. So, okay, this is Good Day, Sunshine. In 3, 2, 1. Ooh, piano. Right away, love it.
Good day, sunshine.
Oh, okay, I have heard this. Or this part, at least.
Okay, I was wondering.
Good day, sunshine. I need to laugh. And when the sun is
Oh, I love the piano. Oh, that was a doubled piano.
Something I can laugh about. I feel good. In a
Oh, I love it.
I'm in
Throw the stupid guitars away. Give me more piano.
good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine. We take a walk. The sun is shining down. Burns my feet as they touch the ground. Good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine. Then we lie beneath a shady tree. I love her and she's loving me. She feels good. She knows she's looking fine. I'm so proud to know that she is mine. Good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine.
Just a feel-good song.
It's kind of sloppy though. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yuck, that thing on the right.
You like cut out.
Just disappearing. Yeah. Ugh. Yeesh. Huh. There was like a sloppiness to that. And I don't necessarily mean it in a bad way. Like the da da da, like the piano part, da 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 or whatever. It was, which actually it was reminding me of ba da dum da da dum, which that's All You Need Is Love by the Beatles. That's the Beatles too, huh?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, the playing of the piano part almost felt sloppy to me, like to the point of like I understand what they were doing, and it did feel very lazy. So it's kind of like just like lazy summer type thing, you know. But I don't know.
It said they were going for kind of a vaudevillian style on the piano.
Yep, I can see that, especially with there's a little break in there where they were doing like type stuff. For sure, I can see that upright piano type sound type thing, which is I think it sounded like an upright piano, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We were halfway through that, and I was like, do I like this more than a lot of the stuff we've heard so far? And I can't really even tell. Honestly, I liked the piano aspect of that, and the fact that it was 2 pianos. I don't know if I've literally ever heard that, ever. To have a piano on the left side and then balance it with another take of the piano on the right side, I don't know if I've ever heard that. And now it makes me want that. It makes me I want metal bands to do that instead. Get 2 piano players, 2 different sort of sounding pianos, one on the left, one on the right. You could have such massive sounding chords and stuff. That would be awesome. So that part of it, that was a very unique thing that they did there, doubling a piano. Like I said, I don't know if I've ever seen that before or heard that before. And the fact that there wasn't a guitar at all, like interesting. They got rid of the guitars and got piano, and I really liked that a lot. But at the same time, like I said, it was a little sloppy. There was some weird stuff there.
That weird ending with it was like a digital glitch on the right side.
Yeah, that was very strange. It must be in the original recording too, don't you think? Otherwise they wouldn't keep it in this.
Right, yeah, it would have to be.
Interesting. I will say, one of the things I read on the wiki page that I thought was really interesting was They were messing around with tape loops on this album. I think it was the first time they did it, and they were each assigned that they had to go home and create several tape loops, and then those tape loops were used throughout several different songs on the album. Like, I think each one was like put in different songs. So I don't know exactly what that means, and I don't know which songs or anything like that, but I did read that, and I thought that was kind of interesting. So I don't know.
Yeah, I do know that this they started doing weird stuff with tape on this album for sure.
Yeah. Which obviously explains all the reverse stuff and all that kind of thing, which there hasn't been too much of that yet. So just that sort of more psychedelic-y, weird "I'm Only Sleeping" song. So I don't know. That song, I have to say, right away I recognized that melody, the "Good Day, Sunshine." The rest of the song did not sound familiar to me other than that part, which 3/4 of the song basically was that part, just over and over. I almost feel like I've heard a different version of that. I don't know if they ever recorded a different version of that or if a cover band did that for a movie or something like that. But I feel like, did the Beach Boys ever cover that or something?
Could have been from a commercial or something.
Yeah, I almost feel like I've heard a different band do that. It says the Good Day Sunshine by the Beatles has been covered by the Tremolos, Claudine Longette, and Robbie Williams. So I don't think any of that is what I'm thinking of. McCartney re-recorded the song for his 1984 film Give My Regards to Broad Street and has regularly performed it in concert. So Paul McCartney re-recorded it. I'm wondering if that's what I'm hearing. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but I feel like I heard a different version of that. So everybody in the comments, let me know if that's what I'm thinking. Okay, let's move on to And Your Bird Can Sing. It's very interesting. And Your Bird Can Sing. I don't know what it's about from the title. We'll have to see. This one is only 2 minutes long. You ready, Cody?
Yep.
Okay, it appears the delay is no better now than it was. In 3, 2, 1. Whoa. Drums off to the left. That's that delayed effect. Yeah.
I like this song a lot. It's a shame that it was removed from the American version.
Okay, this is one of them. Okay. Those claps are interesting on the side. This is Paul McCartney, right? I'm sorry, John Lennon. I mean, John Lennon. Jeez.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Really weird song. Weird, but at the same time, that was almost more conventional than a lot of what we've been hearing. Almost like the thing that's throwing me off in some of these songs, I feel, is the loudness of what I would consider to be background vocals. I feel like every vocal we're hearing across this entire album is like lead vocal level. And it's weird when it's like background. It should be more backgroundy, I feel. There is a clear lead vocal, and I feel like sometimes it's getting drowned out almost. Not drowned out, but it's competing for your attention with the sort of backgroundy harmony vocal type things, which I do all think it all sounds good. It just, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of competing a little bit for your attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think that the guitar there on the right side was really interesting. It was like very compressed, and it was almost like it was over compressed intentionally, and it sounded like it was like almost having trouble fitting into the space that it was in, which is really interesting. I feel like that's a bit more of a modern way. But then the guitar that was on the left occasionally it wasn't like that. There was more spanky high end on the guitar on the left. The guitar on the right has some high frequencies missing from it, which was kind of nice because it allowed the stuff to sit on top of it then instead. The drums off to the left did not bother me as much in that song. I think it was the bass being off to the left with the drums in the first track that bothered me so much. And I think the fact when the bass is in the middle, it allows me to enjoy the song a lot more, I think. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I think that guitar and just that, like, just the melody of "and your bird can sing," I think that's pretty iconic to me. There is parts of that song where I didn't really recognize. So I don't think I've heard that song like as much as I think I have, but it just that those lyrics stick in my mind really heavily. Probably the way "Got to Get You Into My Life" sticks in your mind.
Sure. Yep.
And yeah, I really like that song.
Yeah, I would have to say that was one of my favorites that we've heard so far. I mean, Elanor Rigby is very much sticking out like a sore thumb so far on the album, right? It's been the only thing like that at all, which it makes sense that they kind of tried something different for that. But the fact that Sgt. Pepper's was just that, like every song was vastly different, that's not really what's happening here. This is still essentially guitar, bass, drums, vocals. And I mean, like the previous song, we had just piano, bass, and vocals, or maybe there wasn't even a bass. It might have just been piano, and drums and vocals. But, essentially, I feel like there's a lot less crazy experimentation going on. But there is experimentation in the mixing, which is what we kind of talked about beforehand, that they were trying different techniques and things. And you can kind of tell that with the way that everything kind of sounds. So.
Yeah, and obviously we went a little out of order with Sgt. Pepper's in this, but
right.
It was just because we wanted to start with Sgt. Pepper's.
Sure.
But going forward, it'll be interesting to see what you think of the White Album. I think to see if it's even more experimental or whatever in terms of production.
Right.
But yeah, that's
Okay, now we're going on to For No One, which is the shortest track on the album. It's less than 2 minutes, so boo there. Hopefully it better not fade out. Otherwise, they're really in trouble. All right, this is For No One in 3, 2, 1.
Your day breaks, your mind
Wow.
aches. You
Totally
find
different.
that all her words of kindness linger on when she no longer needs you. She wakes up, she makes up, she takes her
There's a clavichord in there or something. Clave.
I love Baroque pop.
Yep. Wow.
No sign of love behind the tears cried for no one. A love that should have lasted years. You want her, you need her, and yet you don't.
Is this Paul?
When she says her love is dead,
Yes.
you think she needs you.
Wow. Close mic'd trumpet with maybe a mute or something in it.
And in her eyes you see nothing. No sign of love behind the tears cried for no one.
Actually, it's a French horn.
Oh, French horn, okay. I can see that.
You stay home, she goes out. She says that long ago she knew someone, but now he's gone, she doesn't need him. Your day breaks, your mind aches. There will be times when all the things she said will fill your head. You won't forget her, and in her eyes you see nothing. No sign of love behind the tears cried for no.
This is not a happy little love song.
Love that should have lasted years.
See, that is bull pucky. That is absolute dog crap. That was the first. That was half of a song. I was gonna say that I think that might actually be my favorite song we've heard so far, but the fact that it just so abruptly stopped without having any sort of a conclusion whatsoever, and just boo to that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But do you like that song otherwise, though? Because I feel like that would be one you would like a lot.
I do like it. It's not one that I've heard a lot, honestly. I really have only heard it a handful of times when I've listened to this album.
Sure.
Yeah, it's good. I like the French horn in there.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I don't know. I like that. I thought that song was really interesting and cool. I like that one a lot. And I like the mix of it, too. The music seemed a little more toned down compared to it, but the vocals immediately when it started, I was like, wow, this feels like Elanor Rigby. The vocal was way more present and in the front. And the vocals have been very present and dry the whole time, too, but it just sounded a little different there. It felt like it was a little bit more polished. Yeah. Okay, so now we are moving on to Dr. Robert, which is a crazy name for a song. This is 2:14 in 3, 2, 1. Okay. That's that delayed effect. You can tell when it's one track, one take.
This is probably the most forgettable song on here to me.
Interesting. I love this.
This has a fun Wikipedia page. It's a lot of speculation about who is Dr. Robert, and, you know, it's very much about a drug dealer or maybe a doctor that is giving out, like, prescription drugs.
Sure.
So there's, like, it talks about it could be Bob Dylan who introduced the Beatles to marijuana in '64. You know, Bob is Robert Zimmerman.
Oh, interesting.
Or, there was, like, oh, gosh. There's just several names listed on the Wikipedia page.
That's really interesting. Dr. Robert. I really like that a lot. I hated that it faded out. See, again, they're doing all this cool stuff, but then they piss me off with being a 2-minute song. You know, because I think that song was great. I really like that one a lot, and I like the quirkiness of it and everything, and I love the way it sounded. But for some reason, it just, it faded out, and it didn't feel like it finished its thought at all, you know?
Yeah, I get it.
Nah, that's a bummer. That's a big bummer to me. Okay, everybody. So we just took an entire day off because you know what? Why not? I have to say, I don't know. I'm assuming people will be able to see it and tell there, but the last two reactions we did yesterday I just was not feeling it. Our signal was off. I didn't mention it in the video, but we had some power issues in our area where I live that yesterday, which with the storm that had happened the day before, and so something was funky with everything going on, and so I decided to just call it and say we're good. I just don't think that we're not doing this justice anymore.
That's
and
right.
Cody agreed with me, right?
Yep.
And so we were like, I thought we decided to just postpone and wait till today. And I'm so glad we did because I feel so much better right now than I did before. And it's not just the fact that, it was a lot of it was the fact that we recorded for 40 minutes and I didn't realize. That is such a bummer to me. I mean,
Yeah.
Come on, man. How long you been doing this for,
I've had time to since yesterday. The song that's been sticking in my head is Dr. Robert, though, and I kind of dismissed that song.
Oh, interesting.
And maybe it's because it's the last one we listened to, but I think I said it was the most forgettable one, at least. I think it's just the one I just didn't remember the most.
Sure.
But it's a great melody. It's been in my head ever since yesterday.
Well, in the spirit of that, do you want to just listen to that one real quick again?
Sure, yeah.
Let's just go ahead and do that. Okay,
Yeah.
So everybody, new day, new outlook on life. We're going to listen to Dr. Robert, track 11. In 3, 2, 1. Yes, this is, yeah. So this is John Lennon.
Yeah.
They're sticking with that more intense guitar on the right side,
Yeah.
bass off to the left a little. Well, the bass might be in the middle. Actually, the bass might have that effect on it. Because it sounds like it's off to the right a little too. Drums are a little off to the left. Okay.
This guy says it was the first true drug anthem where it's explicitly about drugs in the lyrics rather than like just a druggy feel or whatever.
Interesting.
You know? Yeah, I love this part.
I forgot that it faded out. Boo.
Oh, yeah.
And that's an egregious one too. I mean, at
Right.
least it feels like the song went back to a sort of a repeating part. They're just kind of repeating that Dr. Robert part. But
Yeah. Nah.
So I want to just comment here. I want to read a comment that we got about an hour ago on our previous Beatles.
Okay.
Okay, let me find real quick here. Photos. And then I think, collections. There we go. Today. Okay. So this is an honest question. Okay, Cody? Okay. I want to get your opinion of this. And I want everybody that's watching this still, thank you for being here and sticking with us through all this craziness that this video has been so far. But we're here, we're fresh-faced, and we're ready to go. And I wanted to start this second filming of this with this comment because we get comments like this a lot. And it really boggles my mind. And Chris Parker and I have been mad at this before because it just doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to read this to you.
Okay.
This is from @MikeWolf3845. If anyone wants to go find him on YouTube and just give him a hug.
Oh, okay.
When you guys reference other bands and you say that this sounds like these other bands, like Joe Cocker or whatever, White Stripes, whatever, they took what they did from the Beatles. The Beatles came first. Get it together, dudes.
Yeah.
Now, I would like...
How dumb do you think we are?
Well, no, yes, but also I would like someone to point out where I ever said that the Beatles are taking reference from the White Stripes. You'll not find that because I didn't say that.
And also, I think the only thing we said about Joe Cocker is that he covered one of the songs, and I think I said like, "Oh, you might know the Joe Cocker version."
I don't even remember us ever mentioning Joe Cocker, but whatever, it doesn't even matter.
We definitely didn't say they sound like Joe Cocker because Joe Cocker sounds completely different in his covers of. He did several covers of Beatles songs, but he did, with a little help from my friends, he did the theme song too.
Right.
Whatever that show was.
We got comments like this a lot in our Metallica videos.
Yeah.
Because when I started listening to Metallica, I was surprised that on their earlier work they did like guitar harmony stuff. Mm-hmm. I wasn't expecting that. And when I think of a band that does that the most, I think of a metal band that I love called In Flames. Mm-hmm. And I would say, oh, this sounds like In Flames. Now, for some reason, when I listen to a Beatles song and I say this sounds like the Black Keys, when I say those exact words, people seem to hear me say, oh, this sounds like the Beatles are copying the Black Keys. Which is... Or I'm sorry. Yeah.
Right.
Which is not what I'm saying. I can say that the Beatles and the Black Keys sound similar.
Yeah. There's no difference.
That can be true.
There's no difference in lexicologically. You can say the Beatles sound like the Black Keys or the Black Keys sound like the Beatles. That doesn't imply that one of them came first or that one is inspired by the other. It just it's a simile.
Exactly.
You know,
I'm literally just comparing two things.
Yeah,
that's
you
all
go
it
look
is.
up the definition of a simile, and it's fine. And if anything, I remember last time you were like, you were kind of having your mind blown. You're like, this is so much like Blur. This is so much like the Black Keys. And obviously, you were saying, wow, they drew so much inspiration from the Beatles.
Yes.
Like that's very clear to me, and I think that's probably clear to most of our viewers.
I know,
but,
and I wouldn't bring it up if it was a rarity. But we get comments like that on everything. How can you compare two things without comparing things? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I just don't understand the mindset of that. And this is not just me complaining. I mean, I'd love to joke about all the bad comments we get because it makes me laugh, right?
Yeah.
Like some people are just silly, and that's totally fine. And I understand that people watch our content and they're waiting for a specific reaction, for me to hear a specific thing that they really like and think is a cool little treat, and I say something or talk over it. That's frustrating. I get that 1,000,000%. I get it. That's totally fine to me if people complain that we're talking over something, because that's a legitimate complaint. But to say that, to imply that I am saying when two things sound similar, I mean, it's just a fact. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it is opinion that I say the Black Keys sound like the Beatles sound like the Black Keys. But like, what I'm talking about is like, wow, this kick drum sounds really great. It reminds me of some of the Black Keys kick drums that I've heard before. Nowhere in that statement am I saying the Beatles tried to copy the sound of the Black Keys. That's ridiculous.
Was that what could we only reference bands that existed before 1962?
I think that's what people want, which is so crazy.
We're not going back and we're coming at this, especially you coming at this from a modern perspective.
Exactly. And again, I don't know anything about the Beatles, so of course I couldn't compare them to, like, it's silly. And I understand that it's silly, but
this is Patrick having the realization that so many things that he's heard over the last 20 years have been
influenced,
inspired by the Beatles.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said
And
that
that's a great
lot.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good thing. It's not something that should be complained
Yeah.
about. But we got that so much on the Metallica videos, just a lot at first, because I would be like, oh, this sounds like a Children of Bodom. This sounds like this. And we would get all these comments. They're like, Metallica came before all the bands you were mentioning. Whoop-de-doo, Do not make me sit here and tell you how just because of this Beatles were the first band to ever do this double tracking thing, that they're the best to ever do it. Because I'm sorry, it's not true. There have been 60 years of people practicing this exact same thing with a lot different technology that was specifically made for the purpose of doing that exact thing. I could do it better than the Beatles were doing it here. I could. And that's just a fact, okay? Now, am I saying my songs that I write are better than the Beatles, or that I'm a better songwriter or singer or performer than Paul McCartney or John Lennon? Absolutely not. But to pretend...
Maybe Ringo.
Or George Harrison or George Martin.
No, George
or
Harrison
whatever.
rules.
But like, it's just totally silly. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. I didn't... it just is... It is what it is.
It just boggles my mind how the mean comments you get when you are just expressing your love for something.
Yeah. Well, I think in that case, it's because we just do so much talking, and that's fine. That's how we do this.
I get it.
I really think people would be less... I just got a comment yesterday that was saying, I don't enjoy your podcast. And then parentheses, because that's what this is. It certainly isn't a reaction. It's a podcast. I don't care what you call it. We're friends sitting here having a good time listening to music. And it certainly seems to me like there's a number of people out there who enjoy the way we do it. So if it's not for you, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I'm totally fine with you telling me that it's not for you, but don't be a jerk about it. You know?
Come on.
Yeah.
These people need a visit from Dr. Robert, I think.
They need to take a chill pill.
That's right.
Yes. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the first new song we're hearing today, and my first new Beatles song today. This is I Want to Tell You. You ready, Cody?
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is track 12. In 3, 2, 1. A fade in. That. Okay, so today,
Cancels
Cody.
out a fade out.
Hold on. Today, Cody, look, I get the animated things.
Oh, nice.
Go figure that out. Ooh, that's a weird piano note.
Is that like off key? Is it?
It sure
is it
sounds
just-
like it was. It might have just been a weird note intentionally.
Okay. It definitely sounded out of place.
Yeah. See if they do it again.
Yep.
You know what? I kind of love it.
It's like an alarm going off or something.
It is.
Maybe it's like a phone ringing. I don't know.
Snare drum off to the left.
This is a George Harrison song, by the way.
Oh,
Written
okay.
and performed.
And he's singing it?
Yes.
Okay. That reminds me of that
It goes
Tim.
on like just a little too long too.
Right.
Or like a little longer than you think it would.
Yeah.
I'm gonna click on this song, see what they say that's all about.
Even the way he's singing it, though, is a little bit like hugging the pitch, you know?
Yeah.
It's not perfect. Oh. It reminds me of that Tim Minchin song where he sings a song in A minor but plays he does it intentionally, plays a key that's not in the
Okay, so there's something interesting about this song. Is it just gonna
terrible.
fade out? Okay.
Terrible fade out. Oh.
Okay, right at the end I think you could hear it. So this says Among critics, many writers have admired the group's performance on the track, particularly McCartney's use of Indian-style vocal melisma, which says melisma is the singing of a single syllable of text while moving between different notes in succession. So that's like, I've got time, or whatever he was doing there.
Okay, I'm going to go back and listen to it. I'm going to start right at the 2-minute mark, and we'll see if
he did it in the fade out, but I don't know.
Oh, well, I'm going to start at the 2-minute mark, and we'll see.
Yeah.
In 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
I could wait forever. I've got time. I've got time. I've got time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He did it in. It almost
right
sounds
there
like,
at the end.
Indian style singing. He must have done that during the song for them to mention that. Like, why would you?
Hold on. Wait. It went to the. I heard the next song has trumpets and stuff.
Oh no.
on it.
That's okay. You've heard that one.
Hold on. I'm just gonna listen to parts of it and see if I hear that. Okay. I mean, you can tell even the way George Harrison is singing. Oh, that. It's like a bitter taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, that being praised, the thing you just read, that's not worthy of praise.
That's weird.
Anyone can go, oh, if you've ever sang anything at all ever, that's literally the whole point of it.
Sure, yeah.
You know,
He did.
Ho.
It is true though. At least during the fade out there, it did sound like he was singing in like an Indian style.
Right.
So
yes.
I get that, but I don't know if he did that during the song very much. Or...
Right, and even if he did, I don't think that's worthy of praise.
Like, they didn't say they were the first ones to do it, just that they liked.
No. That's what you're telling me. You're telling me they're the first people to ever modulate their voice while singing. No. That's what you read to me.
No.
Yes.
No. They admired their performance.
Right, and I mean, I have nothing to complain about Paul McCartney's vocals ever. Obviously, now that song was cool because they were obviously trying to. They're like, here, put this on the radio. We dare you. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
That's what they were doing there. And even like I said, the way Martin was singing and holding out the notes and not moving his voice around as much, like that whole song was almost like a troll. It is.
It was weirdly like not conventional pop song.
Well, and it can't be because if they're moving around too much, that weird part, the da 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 da, like that would just be too much. So like if there were so many other, if there was a full chord underneath that, there's no way you could do that because it would mash too much. Yeah. Instead, it just sounds weird and a little unsettling instead of like making you puke when you hear it. Like, you know what I mean? Does it say anything in there about that? The dissonance of
it does. It talks about the keys and the different chords, and there's a lot of notation and stuff that I don't understand in here. Yeah, I didn't see.
That's all right, as long as they're
mentioning, but
okay, that's fine. Okay, interesting. That is one of the most interesting songs on the album for sure.
Yeah.
Now again, that is egregious fade out, like number 6 on this album. So that is, I can already tell you right now that I like Sgt. Pepper's better than this album. Because
and I think you'll like the albums going forward too. There's a little longer songs.
Right. I think that's going to be a big help. Now I will say though, we'll see. I'll save my thoughts till we get to the end.
All right.
Okay, so
we still got some good ones here.
Yeah, this has Got to Get You in My Life, which I demonstrated yesterday in my prowess of remembering.
Get ready to sing the chorus.
So yes, here we go. All right, this has Got to Get You in My Life, track 13, lucky number track 13. In 3, 2, 1. Dry, close mic'd brass.
I was alone, I took a
Oh
ride, I
yeah.
didn't
Oh
know
yeah.
what I would find.
Behind there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Another road where maybe I could
The horns almost make this sound like a Chicago song or something.
Yes.
I don't know if Chicago came after. I'm sorry if they did.
Oh no. Oh, that's right, Cody. Yeah.
I think they were forming in the 60s though.
My mom loves Chicago. They're one of her favorite bands.
Just those horns and how he's singing on this.
You didn't run, you didn't lie, you knew I wanted just to hold you.
What a note. Hold you.
You knew time
Such a nice jump.
Love his voice.
Ooh, you were meant to be near me.
So this is actually double tracked.
And I want you
Oh,
to
okay.
hear me. Say we'll be
I wonder if Paul preferred regular double tracking and
Yeah, I
John
don't
was the
know.
one that wanted to do the automatic.
got to get you into my life.
Do the Beatles sing Cheer Up Sleepy Jean, whatever that song is?
That's the Rolling Stones.
That's who?
Rolling Stones, I believe. The song you're thinking of.
No. Hold on, I'll hold on. I'll
no.
think of it in a
The
second.
Monkeys. That's
the
the
Monkeys.
Daydream. That's Daydream Believer.
And they definitely. Oh yeah.
The Monkeys
they-
are just a complete rip-off of the Beatles.
The Beatles, exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
Did I tell
And we'll maybe talk about that when we get to the single on this,
Okay.
the Paperback Writer.
Okay. Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Just that entrance into the chorus here feels like that.
Yeah, sure.
This is awesome. This is a great song. Now notice the drums are more in the middle, the bass is in the middle.
Yeah.
The vocals are way lower in the mix.
I was alone, I took a ride, I didn't know what I would find there.
This is gonna
It's a
fade
late
out
time in the
terribly.
song to switch it up here. Yeah.
This is awful.
It's like he's switching it up into like a second half of the song, and
And then they're just like, nope.
I hate that.
Yeah, me too. That's
I
what
guess
we
no
refer
sense in
to.
dwelling on it.
That's what we refer to as an egregious fade out.
Yeah, this one is way worse than Sgt. Pepper on that front.
Yeah, and that's what I was afraid was going to be happening when we were listening to this, and that was one of the things that did kind of blow my mind about Sgt. Pepper's. And there were songs on there that did fade out, but not nearly as many as this album.
Yeah.
And not every song on this album is faded out. I understand that as well. I will say so far what I've been thinking is this album is definitely now that song wasn't. That song was special because it had this brass section. But so far this album is a lot more like a rock band. Guitar, bass, drums, vocals is what we're hearing a majority of the time. And then there might be a little thing here and there, maybe an organ or something added. And so it really is more about what they did technologically and from an engineering standpoint rather than the crazy arrangements of the songs. The songs are a lot more straightforward here, I feel. And so I almost
Than Sgt. Pepper's.
yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And I almost feel like you were mentioning that you think people regard this album very highly, almost more so than Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like the experimental nature of Sgt. Pepper's turns some people off more so than this, which is, I feel, a little bit more accessible because it is exactly what you expect to hear from four guys standing on stage, one with the guitar, one with the drum
Possibly,
kit, one
yeah.
with the bass.
Yeah.
You know.
And I wonder just the fact that they did do some technological innovations on this one. Was the first time they did backwards, the first time they did the automatic double tracking.
Right.
And I think there's other stuff on it too that maybe historians have, as time goes on, looked higher and higher on this album.
Right.
Just in terms of its historical value. In terms of like something to listen to, I would rather listen to Sgt. Pepper's.
Interesting. See, that's what I was going to say. Like, it's one thing what the historians think. It's one thing that what
Yeah.
Beatle fanatics think. What is which of these two albums, Revolver or Sgt. Pepper's, does the average person want to listen to? You know?
Right. Yeah. Gotta stay hydrated.
I don't drink water on stream in videos very often because I chug water, whereas I just sip every other beverage.
That's fine.
Okay. The final track on the album. I hope this is. Recently, I've been listening to albums that have really bad final tracks. I really think that an album should have a final track, not just another song. Like, I'm not saying it has to be a slow song or it has to be. It can be any type of song. I just want it to be a final song, right? I want it
You want to feel satisfied at the end of the album.
yeah, and I want to feel like it's the end of the album, not just another song. And I've been recently with what I've been listening to, I've been a little disappointed. So, all right, let's see what we get though. This is the one that this song was mentioned the most on the Wikipedia page from what I was reading.
Okay.
And as I said yesterday, this is the one where the version that ended up on the album is so different from the original version that right after this, we're going to go into the first track of disc 2, which is take 1 of this song, and we're going to see the difference. Take 1 of this song has 2 million more plays than this song, than the actual album version, which I think is interesting. So, all right, this is Tomorrow Never Knows in 3, 2, 1. Oh no. Is it another one of these?
It's not a George Harrison song. But it does have whatever that instrument is.
I love that bass and the driving drums.
Yeah.
That is cool. Notice how everything is really low and their voices are sitting on top of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Backwards.
Wow.
Organ, something. Like, is the take 1 gonna have all these effects and stuff added to it?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
Wow. How about someone had a fun time on that knob there, turning the panning knob and stuff.
I love the
I said yesterday that the Beatles all went home with the homework of making a loop. Maybe that was all used for this song.
Maybe, yeah.
Oh, distorted vocal.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Is this the first instance of that happening? I wonder.
I don't know.
Because this is in so much music that I listen to. That like intentionally lo-fi vocal for just a part of the song. Wow, this is the most psychedelic thing we've heard.
Yeah, for sure.
That constant cymbal thing is really cool. That is a loop, I mean.
Yeah.
This reminds me of so many different things, all of which clearly came before the Beatles and influenced them highly.
It says part of Lennon. Well, I'll get into it later.
Yeah.
Short songs.
Oh, okay. So he's saying of the beginning to end the album, which is great. This is a final track.
Yeah.
They did me good. Now, is it gonna fade out? Yeah.
Well.
Oh. No, I don't count that.
It has an intentional ending. Okay, so about the vocals, it says part of Lennon's vocal is fed through a Leslie speaker cabinet, normally used for a Hammond organ. So I think that's what they were doing to get whatever vocal effect you would call that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And
Wikipedia has like a cross section of the speaker cabinet.
Yeah, I did read that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. I could see that happening, that being with how they did that. Yeah, I did read about people kind of making a big deal about that too. That is cool.
Yeah.
I see, to me, it doesn't sound that crazy that you would sing into something weird or whatever, because people have been doing that for 60 years at this point. But if the Beatles were the first people to try stuff like that, then that is really cool.
It says he sought to capture the atmosphere of a Tibetan Buddhist ceremony. And he said it wanted to sound like he was chanting, like it was being chanted from 1,000 Tibetan monks, which I don't know if they accomplished that, but I kind of get it.
It does feel kind of like a seance type of thing, almost like a constant like wave, and then the way things were going back and forth with the type stuff. It felt very chaotic. Mm-hmm. It felt very repetitive, which I think was very intentional. It felt dreamlike almost. Yeah. That's very cool.
This
That-
was the
yeah.
first use of recorded reversed sounds in a pop recording. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why, because there was another one. We heard the reverse guitar in the first or second track on here.
Well, remember I said this was the first song they worked on though, for the whole album.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, that's still fresh in our minds. Let's hear
Yeah.
what the original version of this was. This is take
I'm really
one.
curious. I've never heard this.
Yeah, this is take one. So I don't know if this is going to be mixed the same way or if this is some weird,
Yeah.
so we'll just have to see. This is Tomorrow Never Knows, take one, the first track off of disc 2 of the Revolver Super Deluxe Edition. In 3, 2, 1.
Wow. They made a lot of changes this song. So it sounds like they have us like ultra slowed down something going in the background.
Yes. And here, the whole thing, these vocals are probably going to sound like this.
Yeah.
This melody reminds me of something very... This has to be sampled in something. That has to be from something. Let me know in the comments if you know what I'm thinking of. So there you can hear the drums a lot better here. They're off to the left a little.
Yeah.
There's a weird, like, reverb track or something off to the right a little bit where you can hear the drums and it's distorted.
Yeah. All 4 Beatles are credited with tape loops on this, so that's probably what you read.
This had to have been sampled in so much stuff.
It says the Chemical Brothers have referred to this song as the template for their music.
1,000,000,000%. I see it 1,000,000,000%.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was saying. The looping, yes. Yeah. Here, I gotta look up songs that sound like the Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows.
Yeah.
Songs that sound like the Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows.
A lot of talk on the Wikipedia page about how they essentially inspired sampling.
Inspired what?
Sampling.
Right. It says Rapper's Delight uses samples of this. There's something like that. Other
Okay.
examples of artists who take well-known riffs or musical motifs. It says Go Your Own Way by Fleetwood Mac. I Am a Rock by Simon and Garfunkel.
That was wild. Just different samples or different tape loops completely changes the feel of that song.
Yes, yeah. And some of that may even have been what was in the final version. It just mixed way differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see, what else do we got on here? So let's go listen to Paperback Rider and
So that's
and Rain then. So that's disc 5.
okay.
Okay, obviously we'll do them in that order. So this is Paperback Rider. The phrase sounds familiar to me, and I think I'm gonna know this one, but I can't think of it or sing it off the top of my head.
Okay.
So we'll see. Okay, this is Paperback Rider in 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is an all-time great.
Paperback writer. Yeah. Those drums are pretty crazy.
So the Monkees had a hit with Last Train to Clarksville, which
Yeah.
is just a complete rip-off of this song.
Interesting. Okay.
It sounds extremely similar.
Yeah, and I know that song too. Yeah. This is awesome.
Yeah.
That is such a Beatles thing right there. Or, I'm sorry. Jeez. Look, I'm comparing them to themselves. Blur. That is such a Blur thing right there.
Yeah.
So is this a little bit more indicative of what they were doing before this album then? Before the...
I think so, yeah. I have to go back and look at what's on Revolver, or Rubber Soul.
This just makes... I'm sorry, but this song just makes me think of Alan Wake. Because he was a paperback writer. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Famous writer. Or Misery. This is the best song of everything we've heard. I mean,
Yeah.
this is awesome.
I'm curious how you'll like Rain.
Yeah.
A lot of people... Will it fade out? Yeah.
A lot of people like this one, you said?
No, a lot of people... Rain is... So the B-side to this was never on an album. Rain is considered, like, one of their most underrated songs, or, like...
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for anything with the Beatles to be underrated because so much has been written about them. But, like,
Right.
in terms of, like, stuff that wasn't popular at the time, didn't chart, I believe, but is a really good song. And I think... Technically, Rain is the first one that they did backwards tracking on, because Rain released as a single earlier than the album did.
Interesting.
They were all from the same session, though. So,
Okay.
yeah. But
Interesting.
Paperback
Okay,
Writer
well,
is
let's
great.
check it out.
And, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I loved that all the way through. That was fantastic all the way through. But as people will probably guess already by this point, I'm a bit more of a basic Jane. You know, I kind of want... I want the songs to be a little bit more. Now, I will say, too...
I'm not into, like, the avant-garde Beatles stuff.
Let's listen to Rain, and then we can talk about kind of stuff overall a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, this is Rain in 3, 2, 1. Wow, the bass part's awesome.
If the rain comes, they run and hide their heads. They might as well be dead. If the rain comes, if the rain comes, when the sun shines, they slip into the shade. When the sun shines, sit there and lemonade. The sun shines, the sun.
It just kills me if I could take these two songs and put them on the album and, like, remove the two songs that I thought were the worst, how much better the album would be.
Yeah. So these two songs have focused on the vocals a lot more,
Yeah.
you know, with
Sure.
their stereotypical kind of like harmony part, more old school sounding vocals. Wow. That's a really interesting bass part. Man, Paul McCartney, really good bass player.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's all over the place here, which is awesome.
That's one thing I noticed when I played Beatles rock band,
Yeah.
which sounds silly, but like when you actually see the notes charted out, I know they're not the real notes, but like you focus on that instrument and you're like, wow, this is like a really complex bass part.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I just love those slowing down vocals.
Nice. Wow. Oh, okay. Here's the reverse. And did people think they were worshiping Satan and stuff in this too? Or?
Probably. I don't know. I don't think that had gotten to be.
The Beatles were like, nah, they could never worship Satan. They.
No, well, I mean, the Beatles at this time, this is when they were starting to get a lot more controversial with.
Right. I did read that he said that this was when John Lennon said they were bigger than the Beatles, or bigger than Jesus.
Yeah.
Or whatever, which is,
right.
I'm sure,
Seems
which is so funny
innocuous
now
these days.
Yeah,
right.
Because everything is bigger than Jesus now, you know. But it's like, yeah, that's
Like,
really interesting.
The fact that would cause people to burn their albums in the street is just nuts.
Yeah. I want to just listen real quick to a little bit of the mono version of that. So I'm just going to play it myself. People will hear what I'm hearing, but you know.
Sure.
See, I feel when you're listening, when you have a song mixed in mono, it is much more important that the different frequencies of the different instruments that you're hearing don't clash, right?
Sure, yeah.
So like that guitar, the bass has no high frequencies in it. It's just,
Sure.
and then the guitar has this like sort of spanky mid-range to it. The drums are further away in that song, and they have kind of a mixture of all the frequencies. And then Paul's, or I don't know who was singing that one. Was it Paul?
That was John.
John. The vocals have a bit more high frequencies and stuff in them. And when you have a mono mix, if you have a stereo mix, you can place things left and right, and it's a way to get them to stand out. But in a mono mix, you really have to be careful. And so it like that is a perfect song that song perfectly is a perfect example of how that philosophy works. Like if you had more high frequencies in the bass, it would start to, if you had some of the like string noise in the bass or any of the clanginess of the bass part, rather than just being that very smooth, only low to mid to low range frequencies in there, it would really start to clash with other things, and you'd hear more of it have a faster transient on it, and it sound more clanky, and it would be really distracting. And so this whole album was kind of mixed that way. And so now that we've done that, I just want to go back here to disc
4 has all mono.
right. I want to look at disc 2 though. So we have Paperback Writer tracks takes 1 and 2. Backing track, what is that? I'm just going to click around a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
Wow. Rain actual speed. Whoa.
What did they?
Hold on. Okay.
Speed.
Go to track 10 on disc 2.
I see it.
Okay, ready? Let's listen to that.
Okay.
Rain, take 5 actual speed in 3, 2, 1.
Oh wow. So did they slow down just the whole song?
Well, the next track is the same song slowed down for the master tape.
It sounds sped up. So like even the bass is higher here, right?
Oh, everything is higher. It has to
it's
be
just the
because
whole-
it's faster.
Okay, no vocals on this, I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip around the song a little bit.
So did they do the whole thing, slowed it down, and then put vocals over it? I guess.
Well, okay, let's listen to track 11.
All right.
In 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds exactly.
Now I'm
like
gonna go back to
the
Rain.
final one. Yeah.
Yep, I'm gonna go back there. And then they added the extra percussion over the top of that. Dude, that's so weird. Like, I know that happens a lot, but I've always been really that is something that is really interesting to me. Slowing down an entire song. Now, on tape, it makes sense and it sounds better. But on
That's true. Yeah, you could
today with digital, you would just get so you get so many more artifacts and digital things that it would be terrible. So it's like very weird.
Yeah.
Is there anything else on there? Dr. Robert, take 7. And Your Bird Can Sing, first version, take 2. Let's see what that is. There's a version with giggling. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. Weird. And so what is disc 3? Disc 3 is more stuff. Different takes. It's so cool that they have all these different takes of things.
Yeah, I love it.
Here's Yellow Submarine highlighted sound effects. What is that?
Submarine. Till we found Yellow Submarine.
Wow.
Yellow Submarine.
Let's listen to that. That sounds like it might be worth a listen.
Okay, where?
So Yellow Submarine highlighted sound effects. Track 13, disc 3.
Got it. Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1.
Yellow Submarine. And we will march till 3 the day to see them gathered there. From Lander Groats to John Green, with Stepney do we tread. To see us Yellow Submarine, we love it. In the town where I was born, lived a man who sailed to sea. And he told us of his life.
I don't know what that other vocal track is.
Of submarines. So we sailed on to the sun.
Wow.
Till we found the sea of green. And we lived beneath the waves in our yellow submarine. We all live in a yellow submarine. Yellow
Wow.
submarine.
One of those spinny things.
Yeah.
We all live in a yellow submarine. Yellow submarine. Yellow submarine. And our friends are all aboard. Many more of them live next door. And the band begins to play.
Wow.
So I don't know exactly what they stripped out of this, but obviously it's way easier to hear the sound effects.
Yeah, that's why it's just so interesting. I would say that's probably enough of this.
Yeah.
Still really interesting though. Here's She Said John's demo.
Okay.
Let's listen to that real quick. That's track 16 on that same disc.
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1.
Hello? Oh. Okay.
So this is at home. Huh?
So this is just him singing, playing the guitar right there in the studio.
Yeah. Or maybe at home.
Yeah, wherever, yeah. We should have done this for Sgt. Pepper's too. We weenied out of that.
Yeah.
That's all right though.
Maybe for future albums, I should go through the bonus discs and see if I can pick out some interesting ones.
That's all right. I think we just looking at it, you can kind of tell what's interesting. This is enough for this for me. Now I want to go back up to disc 1 and just see what she said is again, because I don't remember. Yeah.
Vocals are pretty much the same.
Yeah. Huh?
Vocals are pretty much the same.
Well, kind of. I mean, there's a lot more.
I don't know about effects, but like he sang it the same way.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. It's really cool that they have those things available to them. Like we've talked about a lot with the Sgt. Pepper's video. Because the Beatles were so big, there was a lot put into preserving everything that they touched. And man, that it's awesome that we get to benefit from that now.
And if there's one band you want to have all this stuff for, it's the Beatles.
Yeah, I guess, since they did all this cool stuff.
The most like historically relevant pop group, at least.
Right. Yeah, seriously.
So, and it's good that they decided to release this stuff too, because they could easily just say, no, the work speaks for itself. You don't need to see how we made it.
Like we said last time, there's a lot of other artists that it would be awesome to get this from. We talked a long time last time about Tommy James and the Shondells, and we've had like 5 comments that are like, how dare you compare the Tommy James and the Shondells to the Beatles? And then they're like, why would you spend so long talking about them and stuff? Well, because I like that band, and it's one of the things I feel like I can compare a little bit of to the time, you know?
Right, yeah. I don't think that's a controversial take to say Tommy James is good.
I certainly hope not. And I wasn't sitting there saying that they're better than the Beatles.
Apparently, you cannot compare. You can't talk about anything except for the fact that the Beatles were the greatest of all time and did everything first, and nobody ever compares. And so
apparently. Yeah.
Let's just have a friendly discussion, people.
Yeah, come on. And okay, so now let's just talk briefly about the overall feeling of the album.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this one overall compared to Sgt. Pepper's and just in general?
I should look up the Sgt. Pepper's Tracklist again, but if you're talking about Paperback Writer and Rain in this, then there's quite a few songs on this that I like. Like Elanor Rigby is all-time greatest, or not all-time greatest, but it's one of the all-time great Beatles songs. Mm-hmm. I love And Your Bird Can Sing. I love even Good Day Sunshine, and then Tomorrow One Never Knows is fantastic. And then if you add in, those other 2 tracks, like this is a really, really just a classic album. Without those 2 tracks, I guess there's just a lot on here that did not stick in my mind, and it was almost like I was hearing them for the first time on here, because they just don't get a lot of play, and they're on Beatles mixes where it's like Sgt. Pepper's, like every single song on there gets a lot of play. And not that they were all singles, but like I've heard them all a lot over the years. Just looking through the track list now, like I can sing all of these in my head right now. Whereas for this one, it's like, okay, For No One.
Now I was gonna say,
I Want to Tell You, like Dr. Robert, like none of those going into this, I could even picture them until I heard them, and I'm like, yeah, I guess I've heard this before. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean they're bad. I don't know. It's whatever.
Right. I think now I was going to say too, if you're going to include Paperback Writer and Rain in this conversation, then you have to include Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane in the Sgt. Pepper's. And I feel like I've heard Penny Lane, I know a lot, and Penny Lane is a great song. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I will say for me, and I mentioned it earlier, I'm pretty sure definitively I enjoy. Now, how many songs are on Sgt. Pepper's? You were just there.
13.
It's only like 13? Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a little. Now the first and last track though kind of aren't real songs.
There's a couple of short. Right, there's like a reprise, but overall it's a 40-minute album, and this one is like 35.
Okay, like interesting. Even though it's got more tracks.
Yeah.
I think I definitively would say though that I liked Sgt. Pepper's more, and here's the main reason: the fade outs. This is a personal thing for me, and I get it. I know a lot of people really hate it when I kind of harp on the fade out stuff. But for me, I just can't stand a song fading out. We talk about it here on the channel all the time. I don't like fade outs in any case at all. I don't think that you can make a case that they're good in any reason. For any reason, I think they're lazy songwriting all the time. Yes, I just said lazy songwriting, and I'm talking about the Beatles. Okay, but hopefully everyone watching sort of understands where I'm coming from, and so I don't want to harp on that forever. But I'm just going to say, my favorite band of all time, whoever the Kaiser's Orchestra or whoever I would say is one of my favorite bands of all time, if they released a 14-track album and 9 of the 14 tracks faded out, I would be so distraught and angry at them for doing that I feel like I have to apply the same sort of thought here. Like, now, they have the time that this is being released. Were their singles still released on 45s here at this point?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was they were still outselling LPs as far as I know.
And maybe this is one of the albums that kind of helped change that, since they were talking about the fact that they actually put effort into making an album rather than
I think
just
66 is maybe where pop and rock artists started to start thinking about, because I mean, while they were recording this, Pet Sounds came out, and that was clearly an entire album, you know.
We actually got
but at the same time, they still released Paperback Writer on a single only, and then they took out 2 great songs of this album out of the American release. So it was clearly a time of transition.
Yeah. Here, this is a comment we got 4 hours ago. I read recently that one of the Moody Blues guys were there when they recorded A Day in the Life, which is from Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah.
He said he got up and said, "I effing give up," and left. And he was like most, we can't compete with this or anything the Beatles did. So, like, that's people.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so that is.
And Nights in White Satin, their first album, came out the next year. Or Days of Futures Past. The Nights in White Satin was the song, but Days of Futures Past came out in '67.
Sure.
So, actually, sorry. That was actually their second album. For some reason, I thought that was their first, but.
Oh, interesting. But we also know that Pink Floyd was there at the time too, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And people were saying that a lot of the techniques that the Beatles used on this album were really utilized a lot in the early Pink Floyd stuff, with Syd Barrett's vocals being the automatically double taked and all tracked and all that stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, which I suppose here can be the time I finally unveil what I've been teasing forever to you and Chris.
Okay.
When we were recording the Pink Floyd, after we recorded the Pink Floyd reaction like a year and a half ago or however long ago it was, I sat down with the intention of listening to some more Pink Floyd because I didn't think we'd ever do more.
Okay.
And so I listened to the first half of their very first album, like the very first one.
Okay, so now you know what we mean when people say early Pink Floyd.
No, I don't know what you mean, because I think that it was way better than anything that was on Dark Side of the Moon.
Like, I really enjoy early Pink Floyd. For a while, that was all I would listen to from them.
But I don't know if I just didn't get to any of the weird songs, but like what we were reading there was people were saying that they don't even consider, like, there were people at the time that didn't even consider their early albums real music. I was expecting it to be this like weird avant-garde baloney.
Yeah.
Instead, it was just literally, it sounded like this. It sounded like the Beatles. It sounded like pop songs with maybe a slightly different structure. Like, way more accessible, way more easy to digest. I was like, what the heck? And maybe that was just their first album, and then they changed a lot after that. I don't know. But when I said it,
they had several albums like that, but I think it is way different than like their series of 4 masterpiece albums and what people think of as the Pink Floyd sound.
Sure.
That I get it.
I don't know. I really liked it, and so that was what I was kind of hinting at when you and Chris and I did a video and we were talking about that. But that's all right. That's neither here nor there. We're here to talk about the Beatles. So one other thing I want to say about Revolver as a whole is that it, like I said already, it very much was a guitar, bass, drums album. There were a couple songs on there that had the piano as a featured instrument, and I really liked that a lot. And I think the use of more instrumentation other than just guitar, bass, drums, vocals on Sgt. Pepper's, and then I assume, based on what you've said, going further forward, I like that stuff more, and that is something anyone who knows me at all would have been able to guess, because I like more layers to a song. I like it when things are all left in the studio and ideas are left in the studio rather than being able to perform it live. This album still very much feels like you could perform all of this live, minus all the vocals.
Yeah, I agree.
The vocals would just be standard vocals,
Right. I mean, Tomorrow Never Knows gets pretty weird, and then there's a couple.
Yes. No, you're right. Yeah, and
But,
Elanor
yeah.
Rigby, like in order to perform that, like how did they perform that? I wonder, like with just a band. Did they perform it just? Is there a version of that where they played guitar, bass, drums, vocals with just to do Elanor Rigby?
Is there another take of that on here? I don't know.
I didn't see it.
There's take two, I guess.
Speech before take two. What's that?
Just banter, I guess.
No, that,
Oh, the take two it seems like it's just the strings. So I don't know. Yeah, like I said, they had stopped performing before they got to do any of these songs live,
oh, they did. So they never did perform any of these live.
as far as I know.
Oh, okay. I thought that they stopped
Right. I
after
think this
they.
was the first
Okay,
one.
I thought they stopped. They stopped touring after this album. They toured with this album. So okay, interesting. I mean, you have to think about it at the time too, because nowadays you can just have tracks playing and you play everything off of a laptop. So like whatever you can't perform, you just have as a laptop instrument. And so that's
Right, sure.
Obviously that's way different than it was back in the day. So I don't know, but part of me wants to say that I wanted to like this more just because it was guitar, bass, drums, and it was more like the Black Keys in terms of what they were presenting to us, in terms of the entire album, right? Like because it was guitar, bass, drums, vocals, more like that was the core of everything, rather than Sgt. Pepper's, which was all sorts of weird different things every song. Like I almost feel like if the songs were structured more the way I want with the actual endings to the songs, I would easily be able to say that I like this album more. So for me, it is the fact that the songs are so short and that they just taper off with fade outs. That really is the only negative I could say. I think you can definitely listen to this and tell that they were not planning to have everything be balanced in a stereo mix like they did for Sgt. Pepper's. Like Sgt. Pepper's had other things recorded so they could use things to balance things. Whereas this mix did not feel as balanced at all. However, they weren't as extreme with the panning on the stereo image. So if usually what every song usually was drums just slightly pan to the left, very harsh, intense guitar pan to the right, and then bass either in the middle or pan slightly to the left, lead vocal in the middle, and then all the other vocals like the same volume as the lead vocal and either spread out or whatever like that. But that's the thing that almost threw me off the most. Like I wish the lead vocals were a little bit more pronounced on this album compared to the background vocals, which I feel like were basically the same volume as the lead vocals almost the entire time throughout the whole album. So the vocals definitely seemed like the loudest, most prominent thing in every song. But some of those guitars that was panned to the right a little bit were really slicing through the mix the entire time. So very interesting.
I started reading on the Wikipedia about their last U.S. tour, which was in August of '66.
Okay.
And I think maybe maybe I was understating just how impactful their Jesus comment was, because there's all sorts of stuff like they went to Memphis, Tennessee, where they had the city council voted to cancel.
Right, that's where it mentions the Ku Klux Klan, right?
The KKK that was out there protesting, and then they had made comments at this point about the Vietnam War. And I think maybe yesterday when we were talking that we may have implied that they were not like super politically involved, but I don't know that that's especially true, especially with John Lennon. He's completely all about anti-war.
Right.
So anyway, I think there's just it's kind of, I think they were just fed up. They said enough of this. We're just going to go in the studio. We're not going to deal with death threats. We're not going to be touring in a hostile environment.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're just going to make good music.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's awesome. Like I've said, I rambled about that for a long time yesterday. Then we realized we weren't recording. And then I rambled about it again for another long time. So, all right. Well, we can wind the video down here. Thank you everybody for watching. This was a very mixed up and weird video for us, and even now Cody's track is like weird, and so I don't know what's going on, why my computer all of a sudden decided not to be able to do internet, but at least we were able to finish this on a high note, I feel. And I really did enjoy this. So next time we do the next Beatles album, which will probably be the White Album, I think, right? Is that the next one?
Yes,
so that's
correct.
a double album, and it's very long. From what we got a comment the other day that said it's like quite long. So we'll do less talking on that one, and we'll get right into the music first. And I want to try to make sure I just focus on the songs a bit more. We'll have to just see what happens and what comes at me from every song. But I want to make sure we don't talk for an hour beforehand, and I want to get right into the songs.
We could save all our talking for Revolution number 9.
Okay, well, we'll see what ends up happening there. You've mentioned that, I think, several times. So we'll see what happens. But are there any closing thoughts on Revolver that you want to leave everybody with, Cody?
No, it's going back and listen to it again. It's a great album. I don't think it's as good as Sgt. Pepper's, and I don't think it's as good as the White Album, but what are you gonna do? And I do like the new mix. So
awesome, cool. All right, there you go. Thank you everybody for watching. And when I get out of the hospital, or when we decide it's the right time to do another Beatles video, we'll be there to do it. So we hope you'll be waiting for us patiently to come out with another one of these. Thank you so much for being around. We will see you all next time. Dang it. All to hell. Why would they do this now? Maybe we should... Oh, dang it. We'll
the good thing is I don't think I'm getting much delay from you.
Okay, well, that's good at least. Well, but the delay on my end is what matters, because what's going to happen is it's going to be really screwed up when I go to edit the video,
Yeah.
Oh my God. Hold on. I'm going to count. Okay, I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1, and we each clap. Okay, I want to see how long the delay is. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Okay, it's almost a 4-second delay. So, yeah.